Summer. Summer, yeah. Summer of 1995, hot night in July. Why did Janet have to die? This is the story of Eddie, Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The system is petty. Juvenile law and politics so deadly. 15 years old, known as Big Lovable Teddy. Yeah, Janet down in 42 years old. What's the motive? Killed in her home, young mother devoted. Eddie went in the house, the door was open. She was on the kitchen floor laying there frozen. Eddie claims this was not what he planned to see. A man with the mask grabbed him. Be quiet. I will kill your whole family. Eddie left the house, ran up the street, around the corner, washed up in the bathroom at Burger King. Janet was stabbed multiple times. Rest in peace. It was a gruesome murder scene. I agree. Eddie went to his work, said he got jumped, but never said a thing. What? About Janet lying there lifeless. His friend's mother from across the street. She was in the house. But Janet had a brother-in-law she kicked out. What? For selling drugs. Said if anything ever happened to her, it's him you bring up. The night of the murder, he showed up, was acting suspicious in the front yard. Gina in Virginia says he was looking for his keys. It was humid and muggy, but he was showered and neat. He was a cab driver looking for his key. Looking for a key to one of the cabs in the fleet. Yes. How did he know something happened on that street?
What's going on, Long Gamers? How we doing? How we doing? We have tonight a special guest to break down what it was like in 1995 from the perspective of the Massachusetts State Police. Would you believe it? Would you believe it? We got Becky G's here, Nathaniel's here, Richie's here. How we doing, Long Gamers? Put your peace signs up for Todd. Todd is here. Todd McGhee, a vet, a gentleman. He doesn't know much about this case. He's learning. We were backstage talking about it. A lot of layers, he said. A lot of layers. If I didn't know any better, I think I got a warrant out for my arrest right now. Goddamn. Goddamn, Todd. Tell your boys to calm down. How we doing, Night Shift Nomad? Ruthie, Cicely, Bethy, Greek Princess is here. And you know, coming to the stage, we have our boy Jay Brilla is here. For sure, for sure, for sure. We have our boy Kevy Kev is here. For sure, for sure. And let's bring the man of the hour. Let's give a big, big welcome. Peace signs up for our boy Todd McGhee. Yes, I'm gonna put him right up in the top. There he is, my man. 50 grand. There we go. Take us back to 1995. Welcome, Todd. Avril says yes. I love it. I love it. I love it. Love to see it. Love to see it.
Good to be with you all.
Great to have you.
That's awesome, Todd. I appreciate you being here, taking your time. First and foremost, before we go any further, I would want to say to you, one of your brothers, Massachusetts State Trooper, passed away this morning out there in Linfield in our neck of the woods. He's a hero, if you ask me. He went out to chase a car on the wrong side of the road and ended up getting hit by this car. So I just want to say RIP to your fallen brother, and RIP to his, and RIP to all his family. Excuse me. Peace to all his family members. And chin up. That's all I can say, man. It's horrible. I hate hearing stuff like that. But he saved a lot of people for sure.
Yeah, it could have been a lot worse.
J.F.K. And that's it. Yeah, and you're familiar with that area. Is that where you used to patrol? Was that part of your route?
Up there in those roadways, and granted, this operator was going the wrong direction, but you also have to talk about that's a fast road, right? Those are wide lanes. They're straight, and the speeds are insane. And having worked on those streets, man, you can't be too careful. And calls like this, this wasn't even a pursuit. That's what makes it even the worse. It's just wrong place at the wrong time. I hate to frame it that way, but it is what it is.
I think that's a great way to put it, though. It really was. The timing. It was just bad timing, man. Bad timing. R.I.P. He was a young man. Jesus, man.
30 years
God.
old. They said that he put a call in. He finished the detail at 2:03, and at 2:04 was the collision.
Wow, that's so sad.
Yeah, he was just getting off his shift. I heard that he was well liked. He really he enjoyed serving for the Massachusetts State Police, and he was pushing a strict policy up there as a young trooper. So it's a shame that we lost him, and
Yeah, thank you for that, Kev. You know, I'm not one to shy away from a lot of the bad press the Mass State Police has been getting over the last couple of years. But it's times like this where you have to remember the good men and women that put the uniform on every day and do the right thing and put their lives, serve and protect and put their lives out there for the community here in the Commonwealth. I'm a glasses half full kind of guy, and there's still good men and women that wear the uniform, do the right thing every day, despite some of the bad apples. So I'll hang my hat on that.
Yeah, for sure, man. I agree with you. It's all about respect, and
Absolutely.
there's a lot of good guys out there. Just they're human beings at the end of the day.
That's right.
And it's just a sad situation. It really is. I heard that and I was like, wow, because right when they said it, like where it was, like you said, that's the first thing that popped in my head. That it gets dark in that area and people are flying over there. And it gets in, and sometimes it bends a little bit over there, and who knows if there was if there was like some type of pothole, and I hate to say it, but I mean, like, sometimes you're going 80 and you hit one of these crazy holes too, boom, it just sway out the way,
not a lot of high traffic at 2 a.m. I mean, a lot of people get they get pushy, and they think they can just push the limits. There's not a lot of traffic out there. They think they can just float along. And
I did some news reports earlier on this, and they were talking about there's something like 200 of these incidents in Massachusetts, and Department of Transportation is apparently collecting all the data on the locations, the frequencies, time of day, all the information needed. And so hopefully once they get all the data, they can then start, do you need more lighting in these areas? Do you, to your point about the potholes, right? Was a roadway condition?
Right.
Was it a situation where, maybe the roadway design is flawed? There's a number of things to look at. And then from there, do you put up barriers? Do you put up some type of physical infrastructure to be able to that may deploy if someone's going in the wrong direction to stop them at a slow speed before they get up to that 60, 70 mile an hour speed. So hopefully we'll see things start to take place, and some decisions as far as mitigating this stuff will happen. But I just think of if it last night, if it wasn't Trooper Trainer, it was going to be another motorist. Someone else was going to get last night, and it was inevitable that a tragedy was going to happen.
So sad. He definitely is a hero, because you're right. And that happened to me once. It was actually in 1995. I hate to, no pun intended, but in 1995 I went to a Biggie Small concert. I was coming back from Rhode Island, and I was driving and I seen something coming at me, and the car was in the fast lane, and it kind of bugs your mind for a second, because you're like, what is that? And it comes up fast, and the time I realized what was happening, zoom, right past me. And I'm like, oh, so it's one of those
seconds
things,
to make a decision.
Seconds. RIP for sure. RIP. Once again, Todd McGhee, ladies and gentlemen, retired Massachusetts State Trooper. So, Todd, a little backstory about you. What made you want to become a state trooper? Were you a cop at a local police department before? What's your backstory, if you would like to share?
So, thank you for that question. I'm gonna ask you guys in chat to look over my shoulder, and you see the
Mm.
flag, and you
Yes, I
see
do,
the
sir.
medals. My
Yes,
dad
sir.
was a military man,
Mhm.
22 years in the Navy,
Wow.
and that's him in uniform. He was a lieutenant when he passed away in 1998 with the Federal
RIP.
Protective Service. They're under Department of Homeland Security now. But my wife took all his medals and put him in his police uniform. And that flag was presented to my mom and myself as they were memorializing my dad. And so I'm sure it was my father's influence that got me to go into law enforcement. And I started my law enforcement career in 1987, and then in 1992 there was a state merger of four state agencies. And that's how I became a state trooper. And
What was you Metro before?
registry police.
Oh, registry.
Yep, I used to
Wow.
do all the motor vehicle tests, the CDL testing. I did all that stuff. I worked in Roxbury in a specialty unit that just did motor vehicle enforcement. That was crazy working into the city. Back then, we used to call Mattapan, Murderpan, Dorchester, Drugchester. Um, um, Roxbury was Crackberry. Was because you had all these neighborhood gangs, and they were all violent, and once they all were put in jail, their next generation, their seeds became gangsters. So it was just that's the way it was back there in the 90s and late 80s into the 90s. And so part of my career was spent working those streets. I was an arson investigator, did that for two
Arson.
years. I worked out at the State Police Academy for a couple of years. So I had a blessed career. I had a real blessed career, 24 years, and
Wow.
I can say I did a lot of things, a lot of interesting things.
That's awesome. Amazing things. Amazing
Yeah, very
things.
amazing,
That's am
very
that's
much so.
amazing. So you was in Suffolk County a lot. You was like working
Yes,
the inner city.
in the city.
So let
Yes,
so let's stay there. So right around
Can
that
I just say
time,
something
right?
before you go further?
It's a discussion, brother. You can say whatever you want.
I just want to thank you for your father's services.
thank you, Jay, bro. My dad was a great man. I learned a lot from him. I'm fortunate that I can say, I had a dad in my life, and
Mhm.
again, a lot of influence there. So that's again the reason for the small little memorial behind me.
That's awesome, though.
God bless.
That's awesome. Keeping him alive. He's here, and that's how he stays. That's how
Amen. Amen.
his name stays alive. From the storytellers, and he's here right now in 2026. Dad is rocking. Dad
Yes,
is
sir.
with us.
Yes, sir.
So in the 90s, there was a lot of gangs, right? And they all wore teams. You had the Humboldt Raiders, you had the Franklin Hill Giants, and all these different gangs downtown Boston. If you was a kid like me from Lynn and you happened to jump on the 450 Haymarket and end up downtown with the wrong jacket on, it's automatically on site. Give me your jacket. Let's fight. A lot of people were just getting beat up, jumped, and things like that. What was that like in the 90s? What was the temperature like with the juveniles? Was it more was it real wild, the young kids with stolen cars, all the things that were going on? What was it like being a state trooper with the juveniles? Was it crazy?
So let me just give you some perspective. Boston police was so busy responding to 911 calls, they
Mm,
stopped doing speeding tickets, running red lights, what we call
wow.
Chapter 90 in Massachusetts is motor vehicle law. They stopped doing Chapter 90 because they were straight out every shift responding to 911 calls, everything under the sun.
Mm,
They worked out a deal. Boston police worked out a deal with the registry police, and we went in there and we were going to conduct motor vehicle enforcement. Out of motor vehicle enforcement, we were getting, drug arrests, we were getting gun arrests, we were, getting people that had warrants. I mean, it was almost like we were almost morphed into Boston police ourselves,
mhm.
and as far as the gangs, at nighttime, our shifts ended, I believe the latest shift went to 2 p.m. Um, it was a wild, wild west. You'd hear
Wow, wow, wow.
gunshots off in the distance. You knew they were close because you could hear them, but it was everything under the sun. Guns, knives, just everything. The violence was absolutely at its height.
And like you spoke on a little. You said that it went down. It was generational. If their parents were doing the drugs, now it was the crack epidemic too at that time. A lot of drugs, a lot of crack houses. Selling cocaine. Everything was. It seemed like the police departments back then, like you said, they weren't as big, right? Is that the reason why they merged to kind of make it more, more you guys versus the what was going on in the streets?
Well, as far as on the state level goes, some of that was a little economics, some of that was politicking. There was four agencies with four different budgets, and all those different things. So to streamline the agencies made sense on paper. Again, I benefited from that change, so I'm not going to throw rocks at it, but it was interesting how things had played themselves out and worked themselves out. But all in all, it all worked out for the better. Working with other agencies, that's still happening today. State police, Boston police have a tremendous working relationship. You see that when you see the different protests happen. You see both agencies get together and work and try and keep the First Amendment alive for people to go out and peacefully protest. So those generationally, those things amongst public safety still exist, and it's still a good, healthy working relationship as it should.
Now,
be.
when being a police officer back then, and you seen what was like the juveniles? To kind of just stay with the juveniles real quick. Like you seen with the school system, it was like the school system was like an ecosystem to juvenile detention. Like the kids didn't go to school, they would say, okay, there's a chins, they would go in front of a judge, this and that, and then the kids would rebel, be in the streets, just running amok. Do you think back then that the juvenile system needed some type of reform? They needed to make it a little tougher. Was it too easy back then for the juveniles? They were just coming in and out, getting slapped on the wrist. Did you see a lot of that, like reoffenders of
Yeah,
juveniles?
we did, and the knee jerk reaction to that was, again, you had some serious high profile cases where some of these juveniles got caught up in murder cases and caught in murder cases. And so now there was a big push across the country to try teenagers as adults, right? So that was the right on the forend of that type of prosecutory action within the court system. But you still had that revolving door. To your point, you still had kids making dumb decisions, and maybe they didn't have that guidance that they needed, and they get themselves jammed up on something stupid, like a smash and grab, or something petty, nothing serious, and they just became part of the criminal justice system. And then until that cycle continued until the 17th birthday, where they could be charged as an adult, then their sentencing got a little bit more stricter.
Now, how did you feel back then now you mentioned 17. How did you feel when at 17, do you think a kid should have went to jail? Real jail? And from your perspective, what was the jails like back then? Salem jail, Charles Street jail, them old school jails that, you was basically arrested people and that's where they were going. What's your perspective of that?
As far as the jails go, they were harsh. I remember doing a tour at the old Nashville Street Jail.
I did a tour there too, Todd.
Yep. So you have your perspective.
Yeah, it was a little different than yours, though.
Well, despite the case, it is what it is, and you also had the different levels. If you had a Walpole, you had a different experience too, right? So it was one of those things where, if I could give a kid a break, I was going to give him a break, right? So if I can take the kid by the collar and say, smarten up, get off the street. I'll give you a great example. A friend of mine, J.F.K, you're gonna remember this name. Remember the Thurman brothers, Tony Thurman,
Yeah,
Eddie
I
Thurman.
do.
Yeah, Eddie Thurman played at Holy Cross. Tony Thurman played at DC. Remember those guys?
For sure.
They had a younger brother Timmy Thurman, the youngest brother. He was probably 10, 12 years younger than Eddie and Tony. He loved the fight. Always loved to get in a fight. And I remember one night I broke up a fight that he was in, took him home, dropped him off at like 11 o'clock at night, got him off the street. I saw him like a month later. He goes, "Oh, did you hear what happened to me?" I'm like, "What happened?" He goes, "I got arrested." What? That night you dropped me off. I went back out. You know,
Wow.
and it was that's the type of stuff that these kids were getting into. And, you know, God bless him, he tried to get his life right. He went into the military and actually died in boot camp.
Wow. Sad ending to that. Well, at least he was trying to do the right thing. But to your point, what you said, like back then, I feel like the police were more hands-on. Like you said, give you a ride home, go talk to your mother, you know, and you know, especially if you was a juvenile, like go in there, listen, I'm bringing your kid home. It's 2 a.m. They were downtown Lynn. Like just to make them stay in the house. And then, you know, and then it became, like you said, that revolving door, like, man, as soon as they leave, we're going back out. You know what I mean? So you've seen a lot of that trying to help the kids. And I feel like there was a lot of that trying to help the kids because it was just like you said earlier, the wild, wild west back then. If you could describe the 90s as far as crime, how would you describe it?
I would make a comparison from the 90s to today that a lot of the focus was on, depending on where you grew up, right? If you were in the inner city, there was a lot of gang activity. But you remember out in the North Shore, you had the Hells Angels and you also had the Mafia, right? So if you happen to go into a certain establishment, you know, it might be owned by Hell's Angel, or it might be owned by, you know, someone from the Genovese family, or you know,
And Angelos.
Angulo. Yep, the Angulos, right? Because they were running things on the North Shore. You know, the
For
marina.
sure.
They Gennaro's had, and his younger brother had the older brother had the marina in Revere. Right. So I just remember there was more focus on organized crime than there was on some of the street crime, at least where we were growing up, right? In Lynn and whatnot. So that's what I can remember.
Right. So here we are. Do you remember this case, the Eddie O'Brien case, when it happened? Did it come across your desk? Was any of your colleagues talking about it, or it was just another day at the office for you?
For the most part, it was another day. I didn't follow it too much. But again, trying to get prepared for your show in understanding this, as we were talking offline, there's just so many layers to this case.
True. So let me ask you a question before I open up some questions for my guys. Did you see cases like this? Was there juveniles who committed crazy murders like this, who did like just some off the wall stuff? Is this like something? Are you shocked by this? Like, have you seen in your time as a state trooper, or just your time on this planet, like, you know, juveniles do something like this?
You know, great question. I remember high profile cases because there'd be an incident, there'd be an investigation. The investigation would come up with some juvenile, you know, some 15, 14-year-old kid. And the ones that stood out were the ones with knives, right? Because a lot of times with the gun stuff,
It's accidental.
yeah, it's accidental. They're spraying and praying. They're not really aiming. They're not
Spraying and praying.
right? Remember
Praying.
that?
God,
Absolutely.
There we go,
Absolutely.
Todd. Let's get it going. Spraying and praying.
Yeah.
You're right, though.
You know,
Yeah.
so it wasn't really targeted. But when you get a knife incident, right?
It's
That's an intimate that's the word. That's an
perfect.
intimate encounter with somebody.
Yeah.
And there was this black kid, I want to say he was out of Medford and Malden, and he was a big kid. And they said that he was this kid should never see the light of day. He was so violent and had some violent encounters while he was incarcerated. I forget his name, but you know, that was that was a high profile case. And every time he comes up for parole, right, it's like 6 o'clock news. right? That this kid doesn't get out of jail. He was so violent. So it happens.
I got one more question, right? When you were going to the courts, right, and you had to go to court for, one of your callers or whatever it might have been, right? And you seen the DAs. Did you see a lot of shady shit back then with the DAs? And do you think, is it possible? Because we talked offline a little bit about how Eddie's story is that they were trying to change juvenile law, so they targeted him as the face to change this crazy wild wild west that how we were talking about the 90s earlier, and they used him to make that change, which they did, right? Did you see shady shit back then? Was that something that you could just see? You just walk in and you're like, oh, look at this, they're railroading this dude. Or was it something that was kind of like on the low? Was it blatant?
It was definitely on the low. And were deals cut? Absolutely deals were cut. But it's in understanding how prosecutors work. And I'll say this, at least on the federal level, they're not going to take a case unless they know they're going to win it. Right? Because their wins and losses count for their future political career. Now, on the state district court, a little bit different. And so it depends on the relationship that those law enforcement investigators had with those criminal prosecutors, right? Because they're the ones out in the field collecting the evidence, and then the DA is the one that's going to look at all this evidence and see if they can get a conviction out of it.
So indeed, Kev, I know you want to ask some questions. Go ahead, my brother.
Yeah. Once again, thanks, Todd, for coming up here and joining us tonight. You were on the force a long time. You said you started in 1987, carrying on this career. And, my questions were more investigative, your thoughts on, what was it like? What were the procedures back in 1995 for, a high profile investigation? Did you find it, more like hands-on, or was there new development coming into the picture? I mean, how was that?
Kev, let me give you a perspective from my time in the state fire marshal's office as an arson investigator. I worked the North team, so our communities went from Belmont, Revere, Lynn, Chelsea, Lowell, Lawrence, North Andover. So some were affluent communities, and others, were not so much. And we worked as a team. So if we went out to a residential fire or a commercial fire, meaning a commercial property, we worked as a team. If it was a commercial property, then the ATF, we worked with the ATF. We had all the resources of the federal government to work a fire scene. We would collect evidence by the numbers, unlike we saw in the Karen Reed trial. Evidence by the numbers was collected, bagged, tagged, and then brought to the crime lab for further analysis if needed. That's the way it was. That's the way I was trained. I never had it. Fortunately, I never had a situation where someone was trying to play games. It was business as usual. But I know that working outside of my agency with other agencies, whether it was a fire department or if it was another municipal police department, everyone did everything by the numbers. Yeah. If we liked the guy for a crime and the evidence didn't match, that's it. You couldn't charge him.
Yeah,
that's the way it was. Yeah. And I don't even see that as being honorable integrity. That's what the Constitution requires.
Right? So your take on it is, even if you think that this person could have possibly did it, if there's not enough evidence, you would so much on your square, you would say, oh, hey, we can't charge him. That's it.
Can't charge him. Keep looking, keep digging, but you can't charge him. And I shared this on some of the other channels, that the innocent in an investigation get more innocent and the guilty get more guilty. Right. So if you keep peeling back the layers, Either one is going to stand out.
You know?
Ooh.
Now,
I think
but,
I kind of said that the other night, but I didn't say it as good as Todd. I said something like that, Todd, but I'm just not as good as you would do. I mean, you're very composed. I mean, god damn, there's the point right there.
Facts. Facts.
Wow.
So how I'm taking it is that you guys, I mean, back then in the 90s, you relied heavy on, shoe leather. So you were out there, on foot collecting, hard evidence, working. You're working with local police departments. What about and probably strictly with the DA's office?
Yeah, Kevin, let me give you another example. If we came across, so we get a call that there's a fire, single family house, we go do the fire, we discover a body, unattended death. Our investigation as arson investigators would stop. And J.F.K, you mentioned earlier the CPAC. Then CPAC would come in with crime scene services and they would take over. And then if they say, okay, we deem this to be accidental, the guy was a smoker, fell asleep, and then they died as a result of the smoke in the house, then we would resume our investigation from an arson perspective. So that meant we had to have our act together so that a whole other division within the state police could come in.
You could pass on whatever you've investigated
exactly
to that point.
Right. So if we're sloppy or if we're trying to cut corners, how do we look?
Yeah.
It trickles down.
With this particular case, Todd, and I'd love to know did you find it odd that the head DA handled this case personally?
And did you know that? Did you know that the DA, because I don't know because Todd's been trying to put himself on it. So just to say it to you, Todd, the head DA of Middlesex County, Tom Riley, back then handled the case. Did you see that back in back in them days? Did you see the DA actually try cases?
I didn't know that, first off, so thank you for bringing that level of knowledge for me. It would be case by case, and murder cases obviously are going to be the highest of profile. So it doesn't surprise me that the head DA took it from that lens. But as far as a rule of thumb, you would have assistant DAs usually do the lion's share of the work.
Just slide back into the CPAC. So did they have a CPAC unit in all the state police like barracks, or was it just in certain, so if you're say you're in the Method barracks right there by the old Meadow Glen Mall, did they have a CPAC unit there, or was the CPAC unit just in one spot in the state police?
The detectives assigned to the CPAC would work out of the DA's office. So however, it was 6 or 7 DA's offices around the Commonwealth, then that's how many different CPAC, and they would work a territory.
Okay.
And I mean, in this, when we're talking crime scene, and even with say the arson investigation, so I mean, it's you're taking notes, you're taking physical measurements, you might sketch out a scene on paper. I mean, it's just like earlier today, when you came up, we were talking and you said they can analyze and group where these accidents are happening and where these collisions are happening. I mean, when you think about the investigation today, a lot of people might assume that it's to that higher standard of diagnosing and analyzing all this. I mean, back then, when I say the hand sketch notes and measurements, stuff that you might have to pass off to a CPAC team, I mean, it was, I would think that it was a thorough investigation. I mean, once it's, I mean, the other thing I wanted to get you, if would they leave? Would you have to deal with the situation with the body there if the body was left there, or if it was that bad? Like when you tape off a scene, is there any like access to that? Like, would you be able to access that 48 hours after a crime like that?
Let me answer your first question as far as kind of like the sketching and drawings. I spent some time doing accident reconstruction very early in my career, and we used to call them field notes, right? So we would draw up, the final resting position of the car, of the vehicles involved in an accident, pedestrian. I went to car accidents where people were thrown from the vehicle after impact of something. Um, you know, in all of that, sketches and drawings became evidence. And if it was a serious enough situation and someone was indicted, all my field notes were were part of discovery, and both sides, prosecutor and defense, would take my field notes, and I get drilled in court, for my accuracy of those drawings.
Yeah.
As far as the crime scenes go, the bodies usually were removed from the perspective of preservation of life. If they could save that body, they once discovered, they were gonna get that body out and try and get some medical assistance. That being said, the crime scene would be preserved for our investigative needs, right? So we would tell the line officers not to walk through whoever got there first and responded first to the call for service, tape everything off, and then when the investigators come in, we know how to traverse and move about a property to not disturb potential evidence. That was part of the training, that we went through.
So let me get into exactly. So now, so we have an understanding. Todd was out there in the 90s, and if you were doing crime, Todd was going to find you, right? Todd was there. So he was out there. He was in it. I mean, he was in it. So here we go. The night is July 23rd, 1995. Eddie O'Brien, it was a hot, humid night. Everybody is sweating, hanging out on the stoop. You know how it was back then, just hanging out, right? Somerville, Mass, no different than Lynn, same type of stuff. Now, what happens is that earlier that day, Janet Downing is the victim. Janet Downing was 42 years old. R.I.P. Janet Downing. She had 4 kids. Two of them were twins, Ryan, Paul. Then she had a daughter, Erin, who was a little bit older than Paul. And was she older than Paul? Erin, J Bro?
One
And
was
Ryan, or
older, and
younger?
then Carrie Ann was the older.
Yeah, so the 2 sisters were older than the brothers. Carrie Ann had a son at the time too. She had a baby. So everybody's trying to scramble and gamble what they're gonna do. Ryan, she came home with the groceries earlier that day. Though Janet went over to Gina Mahoney's house. Right, Gina Mahoney's a neighbor across the street. They went over there to have coffee. It's a Sunday morning. They're over there talking. Janet's worried. She's going through some mental stuff. She's saying things is missing from her house. All these weird happenings are happening. Somebody poisoned her coffee. There's kitty litter hung up in the bottom of the basement. All these weird things. Things are being moved around. She said it was her brother-in-law, Adi, who used to live in the house. His name's Adi Ortiz. He lived in the house with his wife, Carol, who is Janet Downing's sister. They lived there. But in March of that year of 1995, a couple of months prior, they had to go. Adi claims, we interviewed Adi, he claims he got a Section 8 voucher and he hit the lottery. He's gone. Everybody else says he got booted because he was selling drugs. He was a taxi driver, green cab. A lot of people said he was selling the weed. Kevy Kev calls him Dime Bag Sally. So She's on the stoop with her drinking coffee that morning. And she says, listen, all these weird things are happening. I feel like I'm being followed. I feel like someone's in my house. He didn't give back the keys allegedly to the house, and he was coming back and forth when he pleased. She said, if anything ever happens to me, she put her hand in her fist. This is what Gina's testimony is. She said, investigate, investigate, investigate. Well, this was the morning of Janet Downing's murder. Janet went to Market Basket that day. She came home. Her two sons and Eddie O'Brien helped her with the bags. They were sitting in the living room playing Sega, and she was on the couch right next to them. Ended up falling asleep. They made a plan. Ryan made a plan to go swimming. Paul went to the beach. Now he went to the beach earlier. What time did he go to the beach earlier that night? I think he left. So what time? Let me hit the timeline real quick. You want to jump in there with the timeline? Do you got it on top of your head real quick, Jay bro?
I think it was 7:30 they went, and then they came back at 11.
Nah.
Well, they were there. They came back at 7:30, and then they came back, left again, and went back at 7. Came back at 11:30.
I got it. I'll make it perfect. Give me 1 second. Yeah, so the timeline is exactly when she came home. Let's see. Where is it? I have it right here. I'm gonna pull it up. So
yeah, I'm so wrong on that time. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, you're fired, by the way.
Yeah, I'm fired a lot lately.
God damn, it's a big show. We got Todd up here. We can't be wasting his time, bro. You gotta have that timeline on deck. What are you doing?
J.F.K. is giving out contacts, Jay. Too many contacts.
So here's the timeline. Let me just blow it up for you. So this is what happens. At 7:30, Eddie was at the Downing home. He brought some grocery bags into the kitchen. We're not there for more than 10 minutes. Says no one went in the cellar, but Eddie told them the kitchen doorknob was broken. This is that night. This is at 7:30 p.m. So I got some stuff pulled up. Hold on a second. I want to make the presentation tighter. I thought Jay Bro would have that perfect. Let me just pull this. Let me pull this down.
Yeah, I'm slacking. I'm sorry.
So 6:15 p.m. Todd, on the night of July 23rd, 1995. Janet returns from Market Basket. Janet was seen bringing 2 bags of groceries in the house and coming back out. She was smoking a cigarette and looked upset. Statement of Michael. At 7:30 p.m., Ryan, Joe, Chris, and Eddie, his friends, obviously. Ryan's the son, right? Were at Downing's home, brought some grocery bags into the kitchen, and were not there for more than 10 minutes. Says no one went into the cellar, but Eddie told them the kitchen doorknob was broken too, which he explained you had to use the deadbolt. Ryan explained that. Last saw Eddie walking towards his house. Ryan, police interview, 7/28/1995. At 8 p.m., Paul came home and went into the house to grab a bite to eat. Statement from the grand jury. So prior to this, Paul Downing went to Revere Beach with Jeannie and a girl named Michelle and another girl. They went down to Revere Beach in 2 cars. They came home to bring back the other vehicle to all get in 1 car to go back to the beach. So they were at the beach in Revere. They went back to Somerville. Paul gets home at 8 o'clock. He says, I'm going to grab a bite to eat. At 8:15, John Roberts, the neighbor, came home from dropping off his babysitter, went to the O'Briens with his son, Eddie. Eddie was there. Shortly after he saw Paul, he waved at them, and it was very peculiar. I gotta mute you up, Kev. You're
All
killing
right.
me. Hold on a second.
Yeah, traffic.
Yeah. Um. So at 8:15 p.m., John Roberts, he came home from dropping off his babysitter. He went to the O'Briens with his son. His son was 2 years old. It's 2 years old. Eddie was there. Shortly after, he saw Paul. That's Paul Downing, right? So this was at 8:15, and Paul waved at them and was very suspicious in his face. It was handwritten. I think that was. I'm gonna have to take that banner down because it's killing my view. Uh, where is it? So that was at that was handwritten statement from a private investigator, 8/17/95. John Roberts was the neighbor. So at 8:45, Eddie carried John Roberts' son home with John. Now we interviewed John Roberts, and John Roberts told us that Eddie was in a good mood. They were gonna play basketball. Eddie was like 6'1" at the time. He's like 6'8" now, 270. So at 15, he was like already 6'1". So they were like, joking, tomorrow we're gonna go down the basketball court and I'm gonna school you. Right. So Eddie helped carry Roberts' son home at 8:45. And that was his statement, 8/17/95. Now, let me just back up. So at 8:30, Janet was still sleeping on the couch. Paul left out the front door, which he says he closed, and he left with Jeannie. Eddie was on his porch with Big Ed. That was the statement from the grand jury. So 8:30, Paul leaves, and he says his mother was still sleeping on the couch. Paul said he left the front door. The front door was locked. It was closed, and Eddie was on the front porch with Big Ed. 8:45, he carries John's son's home. And then at 9:10, Eddie left the house. That was the statement by Big Ed and Jessica. At 9:15, person named Ann and David Lee got home around 8:30. Ann did not hear anything outside until police arrived. Statement. 9:15, John, Seth, and Marco knocked on the front door of Janet's house. The door was open, screen door was shut, foyer door was closed. They heard noise on the side street. They saw a male they thought was Eddie, yelled to him, did not receive a response, went to O'Brien's house to call Downing's house, no answer. And then they went to Gabi's house. So they knocked on the door, and then they looked out the side and they thought they seen Eddie, but later they said it was Eddie running out the side of Hamlet Street, running out the house. So basically he got spooked. At 9:30, David Lee, he was a tenant. Who was David Lee again?
He was a neighbor.
He was a neighbor. David Lee was in the bathroom with his window open, and he heard two males saying something like, "What are you doing here?" and "Get the hell out of here." Also, he thought he heard one person running. That was the statement to the trooper, 8/2/95. So he was a neighbor, and this is what he thought he heard. At 9:45, Ryan came home. Ryan Downing came home. He used this key to unlock the front door. So keep in mind, he used the key to unlock the front door. The door was locked. He found Janet on the dining room floor. He went to O'Brien's house to help, to get help. That was the statement was on 8/2/95. And then the call went out at 9:55. The police showed up around 10 o'clock. So Eddie's story is, so basically they're saying that Eddie went in there, got off the porch at 9:10, and by 9:40, this all happened by 9:20 in a 10-minute period. He went in there, right? He went through the back because that day when he was hanging out, he said, "Hey, there's something wrong with your back door," to Ryan. This is what Ryan remembers. And Ryan's like, "It's broken. You got to use the deadbolt." So they said he went in through the back of the basement, downstairs to the back of the house. He came up. She was still sleeping where he seen her last. And he went in there and he did the unthinkable. He stabbed her 98 times. The reason why it's a sexual obsession case because out of that 98 times, she had wounds to the bra. The bra was taken off, and the reason how they know the bra was taken off was because this
She
is what
never had
happened.
stab wounds to the breast or nothing.
Yeah, so this is what happened. Janet was stabbed 98 times, right? She had 66 of the wounds were deep stab wounds, 4 to 5 inches deep, to her chest, torso, back, neck, skull, ear, legs, and arms. 32 of the wounds were stash wounds on her neck and body. She had defensive wounds on both hands, her wrist, her left arm, 2 fingers on her left hand, a stab wound on her upper left forearm, an abrasion on her elbow. 2 stab wounds were to her back of her skull, a wound above her left ear, a scrape to her head, bruising to her ear, 22 cuts across her neck from ear to ear, a stab wound below her left ear, a slash to her chin. She had 38 stab wounds in the center of her chest, 5 stab wounds to her upper back, shoulder blade, and lower left back. She also had bruises to her nose, her lower left lip, her chin, and her upper back. The back of her left arm, elbow, and the top of her left wrist was bruised. Her bra was also cut 36 times, right? 16 in the left cup, 9 in the right cup, 14 times in the rear, yet the cuts did not match up with the cuts in her shirt or her body. This suggests that it was removed, stabbed, then replaced under her shirt and left unlocked. Now, Eddie, to give you a little backstory about Eddie, Eddie worked at a place called Midnight Variety, where he ends up traveling to. Midnight Variety was a shady place, Todd. They sold knives. They did some shady things in there. And in the back, they had a porno section. They're saying that, he was addicted to the porn at a young age. He shouldn't have been there. Something turned him out.
One of those old head shops?
Something like that. Yeah. They just had a bunch of stuff going on. They sold knives. It was just one of the places that, probably a bunch of, like a fence, like the boosters would come in and say, here, and they would flip it. Right. And that's basically the type of energy that was in there. He worked in there feeling the papers, but they're claiming that he was, he always was in the back exploring, which is like, you're a young kid, 15. Hey, it is what it is. But that's the reason why the bra situation, they turned into they now keep in mind, from gavel to gavel, this case was on court TV. This is one, if not the I think maybe the first 3 cases ever to be on court TV, right? So from gavel to gavel. So that's where the politics come in, because, like we said, the DA of that county actually prosecuted it. He wanted to change the law, which he ended up doing. We got some backstory with you about the Wild Wild West, what the 90s were with the juveniles. I mean, you even said yourself that Boston police stopped even taking 911, stopped even pulling people over for red lights. Like, everything was just crazy. So he wanted to shape things up and be a hero. He's 52 years old, Tom Riley at the time. He has to make a move and make it soon. So does that mean that he planted evidence? Does that mean he's a piece of shit? I don't know. 2 things could be true. There's some political stuff, and Eddie could have did it. But Eddie jumps off the porch at 9:10. At 9:20, like I said, his friends knock on the door. When they knock on the door, they hear a rattle in the bushes. Eddie comes down the back, keeps walking down the street. He walks down the street, and he goes to Burger King. Right? This is his words. He goes to Burger King and he goes to use the bathroom. He washes his face. He said he went in there to get his composure, what he just seen. Then he goes into Union Square, Todd, and guess what happens? A black guy pops up and a Puerto Rican guy pops up. Now, keep in mind, Eddie's 6'1", 200 and something pounds. He's a big guy. I mean, this is the guy that you might not want to target by the eye test to rob, but they did anyway. And they walked up to him and they said, give me your shit. We talked about getting jumped earlier. This type of stuff happened every day back then in 95. It's something that did happen. They said, run your stuff. Problem with that is he gave his money, and then they said his statement is, then they said, I seen your face, and they stuck him, and he got cut. So now he goes into Midnight Variety where he works, and people are looking at him like, what's going on, Eddie? You know, what's wrong with you? And he's bleeding. And they're like, call 911. So they called 911 and put him on the phone. Cops roll up. They're at a murder scene, right? They get another call within 10 minutes. This is all within 10 minutes, like 10 o'clock. They show up over there. Now they're at 2 scenes of 2 stabbings at the same time. They don't know what's going on. So they ask Eddie a bunch of questions. Eddie still stands on that 2 people jumped me. There's no blood on Eddie. 98 times. You just heard what I said, all the slashes. The testimony to everybody that was on the scene said he was wearing the same shirt. He had like a Nike shirt on. What did it say on the Nike shirt? Above the rim. The same shirt he had on, a white shirt at that. There's no blood. He had a size 14 foot, Todd. There's no footprint in that house, right, of blood. And he talks to a bunch of police, and they drive him home, right? Now, keep in mind, this dude's an altar boy. He's not me growing up on 149 Franklin Street in Lynn. He's an altar boy, right? Good boy, good kid, local kid. He gets home. His grandfather is the ex-chief of police and says, listen, you just got stabbed in your hand. You got to go to the hospital and get a tetanus shot. So he goes to get the tetanus shot. While he's there, the police say, okay, we got 2 stabbings. Let's go check it out. They go there. They interview him. They take his blood. They take his fingerprint. They match his fingerprint up. Comes back to the door, the exit door where J.K. unlocked his hands on the door in her blood. And they find a handprint. Where else did they find a handprint? Jay Brill, Kevy Kev?
In the basement on one of those beams or something.
Yeah. So they find some fingerprints, and they find his blood in the house too. They find his blood in the house. And he has her blood on his ankle. But he says it was from kneeling down next to her. But he still doesn't say that yet, Todd. He still doesn't say he was in the house. So now, 48 hours later, they do a search warrant to his house. They run in his house, and they flip it upside down, and they find a knife discarded, right? It was a red knife, right? You want to explain that a little bit, Jay, bro?
It was the other knife to the set. I think I don't remember what color it was, but it was the same knife, but a different color.
So the circumstantial evidence, to put some clarity to it, it was the same knife. They found the knife at the scene, just the hilt of the knife. Now, but keep this in mind. I don't want to confuse you, because I know this is a lot, and I'm trying my best to be. I'm not a DA by no means, right? So I'm trying my best. But keep in mind, the hilt that they found in the house, the knife hilt, the blade's gone, right? They never found the murder weapon itself, but the hilt of the knife itself, the DNA that was on that hilt was not Eddie's DNA. They ran it, and it never came back to Eddie's DNA, but it was someone's DNA. They just never matched it to anybody, right? So let's keep that in mind. But in that window, not a couple of weeks later, in that first 48, they find a knife in the trash, a discarded knife, and they also find porn in the trash. Discarded porn and a knife that matched the same hilt as if it was a set, right? So that's circumstantial. And the guy at Midnight Variety said the day before, Eddie showed them a knife that had a loose hilt, and it was underneath the register. And the day of the murder, it wasn't there. So as if he took it and he did what he did with it. So now they got Eddie. He gets arrested. They got him for the murder of Janet Downing. That's what they find. Oh, and they also find, right, a newspaper clipping of natural born killers, not the movie itself, but of 2 people who went to, I think it was like Avon or something. Don't quote me on that. They ran in some old man's house and did the unthinkable and stabbed him 27 times. 27 times. One of the some of the dialogue inside that article so to speak, was we went in the house, we stabbed him 27 times, we changed our bloody clothes because we're some natural born killers. And that was a little piece of an article that he kept on his bureau. Come to find out, they interview Ryan. Ryan says, now that I think about it, a couple of days ago, I went over there and Eddie's telling me, did you ever think about hurting anybody? I'm thinking about hurting somebody. I might want to hurt somebody. And you remember that time I made fun of your mother and you chased me around the car? Another thing is, Ryan remembers and Paul remembers that he always was wondering what was up with Janet. He asked questions like, why does Janet come home, Janet Downing, the victim, come home and go to the driveway and just sit in the car and don't go right in the house? And he said something about their mother's cooking. He asked them if their mother was a lesbian. So they started saying, stop going in on my mother, man. What the fuck is the deal with that? You cut it out. And it was like one of those things. Janet Downing's brother, Steve, said that when he did encounter Eddie over there at Janet's house, he would ask Janet some weird questions. Just being, So now he goes to DYS. 2 weeks go by. They held whatever how it goes. 2 weeks go by, and now they're trying to get him out of jail. They're trying to trying to get him out. Now the whole neighborhood is cut in half because one side of the neighborhood is Big Ed, who is little Eddie O'Brien's dad, another big guy, and then there's the chief of police and ex-chief of police, his wife Trisha, and now the neighborhood's like kind of divided because Ed didn't do this. Right? This is a setup, and everybody else is like, what are you talking about? The blood's in the house, his blood's in the house, there's blood on him, right? And when they arrested him, keep in mind, when they arrested him, he didn't make a peep. That's another thing. Like he never said a word. Like he didn't get arrested and be like, what are you doing? I didn't do that. It was kind of like, oh, it was just a very, very awkward situation. So now they're going for the bail hearing. They retain a lawyer named Robert George. As they're going for this bail hearing, Eddie O'Brien slides a note to Robert George 2 weeks later and says, P.S. I'm just paraphrasing. He says, I was in the house. Now he's in the house, Todd. Now he admits he's in the house 2 weeks later. But now they're saying that he's only saying that he was in the house to kind of have a reason why his blood is in the house, right? Because how'd your blood get in there? But it still doesn't explain how the blood got in there, Todd, because let me explain. So now he says that he walked in the house, the door was open, and he thought Ryan was in the house. And then a guy comes out from the dock with a nylon over his face and puts a knife to him. And then all of a sudden, the boys, Gavi, Marco, and Fitzpatrick, come up to the door and knock on the window. They get spooked. He tells them, close the door. When he closes the door, that's the explanation for his fingerprint to the door, right? That they found. They leave. He runs. And he does everything I just said. He runs out the back. He goes down. There's a little drop. And he goes down the side street hamlet and he does all that. But the thing is, he didn't get cut in the house. He still claims that he got jumped in Union Square and got cut. And they're claiming that the blood in the house that was his was planted by Riley because he was trying to become the attorney general, which, just to be clear, just fast forward a little bit, 1 week after Eddie O'Brien got found guilty of the murder of Janet Downing, Thomas Riley became the attorney general. So that's the take on Ed O'Brien. If you want to jump in at any time, does any of this seem logical to you?
So you've got a phenomenal memory as you recall all this.
Thank you.
And again, the details of the story matter. Here's what stands out to me. Based on the violent nature of the crime, even if he changed his clothes, he should have been covered in blood. Here's the next thing, and this you see this in every crime show. This motion, the blood doesn't just stay on the victim. There's spray, there's splatter. And I learned this in some of my formal training, that you literally can tell the direction of a person moving that's bleeding based on the blood droppings, right? So blood, the remains of blood tell a story. So even if he would changed his clothes, he would have been covered. There would have been splatter spots. There would have been, underneath his fingernails. They could have done a whole sampling on from his skin. Next thing, they mentioned the prints found around the house. When will my question would be, when were those discovered? Was it in the immediate? Because the timeline you broke down is very tight. It's extremely
very tight. So they found them that night. They said they found the prints that night.
But I guess my question would be, who found them?
The police, the detectives, the CPAC unit. I think some of the Somerville police. Now, keep in mind, now that is just like an overview. I see everybody dropping some comments about some things, and I'm going to pull that up. We already had Todd up here for an hour. It's a lot to unravel. Now, the question is, can somebody, if it's accurate, now based on, regardless, John Roberts, I interviewed this guy, right? John Roberts is a square, right? Like, this guy got no stake in this case. He actually was from Georgia, and he moved to Boston, and he was there for 2 years, and he went back to Georgia. He was like, I'm out of here. Fuck this place. So he claims, he thinks Eddie's innocent. There's no way, because he remembers perfectly what time it was on his watch. Now, when you see this guy is like, it was the summertime. It probably just got dark at 8:30. He has a 2-year-old. So he realizes when it gets dark, he looks at his clock. Oh shit, it's 8:45. This kid should have been in bed at 8. You know how that goes with the little ones. Like, oh man, it's summertime though. It starts running late. So he knows it's 8:45. Okay, I'm calling it a night. I'm out. And then Eddie helped him across the street with the baby. Then Eddie went across the street, put in a VCR tape for Eddie had a 2-year-old sibling in there and a 2-month-old sibling in there. I think he gave him some ice cream or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but he gave him some type of snack, and he put a VCR tape in. And then at 9:10, he looks at his dad, I'm going to Burger King. So even if it's 9 o'clock, 9:10, everything that I explained to you in that text, is it possible someone could do that to somebody? Because you've seen she fought. She didn't go out without a fight. And no one heard a thing, though, Todd. That's the craziest thing. No one heard a thing.
Screaming.
No, nobody. Nobody heard. And there was people in the house. Now, there was water pressure in the house at that time. So they shared. There was a family in the house, right, Kevy? That shared. There was a tenant.
It was a duplex.
It was a duplex.
So they had a center bearing wall that separated the two apartments, let's say.
And I think at 8:30, she claims that her water pressure was low, which suggests someone was taking a shower. So I'm about to enter the third party culprit. I'm building up to that.
And there was a dog in the house too.
Kev's obsessed with the dog.
But I'll say, Janet had a dog. She had a golden retriever.
She had a dog. She had a golden retriever for sure. She did, and the dog never barked. And the witnesses said that the dog was a noisy dog, barked at everything.
Yeah. Wow.
And like J.F.K. said, a hot summer night, and the windows are open. I mean, if back in, not every single house had a AC in every single window. There was probably that one room that was cooled off, I mean, if you were in there, you might not have heard nothing, but the rest of the house, the windows were wide open.
100%.
You know?
So this is the reason why we're so obsessed. I wouldn't say obsessed, but so into this case is because everything you just said is everything we say. Like, it doesn't make any sense how this guy. Now, it doesn't make sense that he go. I'm going to tell you straight up. I don't know about this jumping story, but then again, I mean, who am I to say that didn't happen? Right? You know what I mean? But they say there's no coincidence in true crime. So I don't know if it's a coincidence or not. I don't get it. But the fact that there's no blood, but then he would have had to change his clothes. So the question is, so back to the CPAC. Let's go to the investigation. He said he went to Burger King. Now he tells the investigators, go ahead, sorry.
Hold that thought. I can tell you why he didn't say anything at the time of the arrest. His grandfather told him, don't you open your mouth.
That's what we're thinking. But see, the problem with this is, Todd, he's been in jail for 31 years and he hasn't said any of this stuff. Like, he doesn't say his grandfather passed on of cancer, R.I.P. his grandpops. You know, he's 45 years old. He was a 15-year-old kid. So let me just so October 1995, right? Let me go here real quick. October of 1995. So here's an altar boy, never been away from his house. He's in DYS, and he actually went to the worst DYS at the time. He went to Plymouth when they just opened up DYS inside on the prison ground. So it wasn't residency. It was some inmate shit. He was being treated like an inmate at 15. I can assure you of that. He went there, and so now Riley, the DA, pays for the truth serum and a lie detector test. And guess what? He passes both. And I have the video of the truth serum. So I'm going to show you the 15-year-old, October 1995, 2 months. I'm going to show you a clip of that. And you tell me, based on the condition, I mean, it looked like this dude took a bunch of Xanax before he jumped on a flight to Cali. I mean, he's out of it, right? So I'll let you be the judge of that. You all caught up, Adi? We got a state trooper here tonight, buddy.
Yeah, Adi, you out there?
Oh, he's watching.
What about the dog, Adi?
You know he's watching.
Eddie O'Brien denied the murder both before and after the drug.
No.
Eddie O'Brien denied the murder both before and after the drugs were administered. The prosecutor says it means nothing. He says O'Brien told different stories to the same examiner.
He never accounts for the fact that his blood is in that house. He never explains that away in the tape, and he would not have been able to explain that away at trial.
Eddie O'Brien was convicted this fall of murdering his neighbor Janet Downing in her home in 1995. The woman was stabbed repeatedly. Both O'Brien's and Downing's blood were found at the scene. Truth serum evidence has never been used in a criminal case in Massachusetts, nor has it been allowed in any major trial in the United States. And some criminal attorneys say there's a good reason.
Using a truth serum is an attempt to use a medical test for a determination that the jury is supposed to make. Are you telling the truth?
The doctor who administered the drug calls it reliable, saying it's been used clinically for 50 years.
It is new to the forensic field, but in clinical medicine today, it is a valid, reliable tool.
I walked in, right to my left, I saw Janet on the floor. She was laying there all covered with blood.
All covered with blood now?
The blood all over the stairs and the hallway.
The bottom line in all of this is that
blood now. The blood all over the stairs and the hallway.
O'Brien denied the murder both before and after the drugs were administered. The prosecutor says it means
no.
Eddie O'Brien denied the murder.
No.
Eddie.
So that's him saying, I didn't kill Janet Down, and explaining what happened underneath that truth serum. Now, based on you see the condition he's in, do you think he could pull that one off too at 15 years old?
No. Again, I go back to one, the undeveloped brain of a juvenile. Two, now you're administering drugs. That's another issue. And
right.
You know, that's why you don't see this stuff in modern day criminal proceedings. It's just you got a so-called expert saying it's reliable, but I can think of 1,000 attorneys that wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Now keep in mind, Riley's the one that put up the money to do that, but then they didn't use it when it turned on them.
So that's exculpatory evidence. That's the type of thing that should trigger a mistrial.
Indeed. And it wasn't. So here comes the third party culprit.
Okay, I'm buckling in.
Yes. So now all this happens, right? Now, during that night, there was somebody else that was on the scene. And this guy, oh man, his name is Adi Ortiz. He was the brother-in-law of Janet Downing. He claimed, everybody's saying that he got kicked out. He's claiming I didn't get kicked out. He's claiming everything was cool. Janet and me were tight. There was no issues. Like I explained earlier, people are saying different. Right after Janet is being taken out on the stretcher, he pops up and he's right there and he's in the front yard and he's looking for his cab key. He's looking for his key. He doesn't know where his key is. He's frantic. And the cop stops him and says, "What are you doing?" And they say, "You can't be here." Right. And he bugs out. He goes across the street to Gina and he's looking for his key. Now, Gina, everybody else is torn down. Everybody else is sweaty, wife beaters on, tank tops, long day. But Adi Ortiz looks like he just jumped out the shower. He's clean as hell, washed up, smelling like obsession. Jakar, maybe the polo, the green bottle, Todd. Who knows? Right? He's right there. He's looking good, and he's looking for his key. And he tells her, "Can I use your phone?" And he goes in the house and he claims he used the phone to call his wife Carol at the hospital at Mass General, right? Now, she gets on the phone allegedly and tells him Janet didn't make it, right? He comes out and tells him that Janet didn't make it. The question is, how does he know that? And how did he get a hold of her? So his story is how he got there and how he knew to show up there. This is his initial story. He was driving from 93 to good old South Station, where you were patrolling, where you were busting people in the combat zone, right? He went to South Station for a fare to drop off. The dispatcher comes on and says 42. That was the name of his taxi. Call your wife. It's an emergency. There was the old Peter Pan station across the street, right? I know you know it well. He goes over there and use the phone. This is what he says. He goes over there to use the phone. His wife gets on the phone, and this was his initial story until we pulled a lot of things out of him. So there's a lot of layers to this. But his initial story was his wife says, "Go to Janet. Something happened." Never said anything happened to Janet. Just said something happened over there. He immediately flies back down 93 and goes to Janet's. But ironically, he makes it all the way up to the top of the murder scene, where it is, where the stop sign is, where now this would have to be, she got taken. The point is, she got taken out at 10:22 in the ambulance. The body got discovered at 9:45 by Ryan. He got taken out by 10:22. So if he showed up, it would have to be around 10:45, right? And that's giving him a lot of leeway because he would have to pull over. And like I said, Janet, they never said what happened over the airwaves. They said just call your wife. It's an emergency. Then he would have to pull over. He would have to get on the phone, and then he would have to make it there. And then on top of that, Janet would have to get the word too. So if Janet would get the word, if the body left at 10:22, that means Janet would have to make it to Mass General, which would take about another 15 minutes, right? And they'd probably be driving slow because they're working on her. So she wouldn't get there till 10:45, which means is then technically they're not going to probably put the word out. Let me ask that question before I go further. If someone's DOA like that, right, and they take them to the hospital, how long after do they usually contact the next of kin? Is it immediate or does it take a little time? Do they figure things out?
There's a chance based on the nature of the injuries that the EMTs could have pronounced her.
Yes.
Which would have sped up that timeline as you're breaking it down.
All right, so she's still got to get to the hospital regardless. From Somerville to Mass General, 15 minutes at least. So we'll say another 15 minutes before Carol finds out what happened to her sister. So that brings us to 11 o'clock, right? Which means is, how'd he get on the street? So now he gets the phone call, he pulls over. Now the latest he would have got there would be 11:15. But how'd he make it up to the top of the street? Now, at that time, we got a whole hour that went by. State police are already on this, like coming through. Like, it's a murder. They know it's a murder. How'd he make it to the top of the street? The cab was parked right where everything's going down. Fire engines, police cars, everything. How'd he just maneuver his way right by all of that and get out the cab? And then he loses his key. And right there, he just loses it. What happened to my key? Now, when we interviewed him, we said, well, what type of cab was you driving? You know, what was the cab? We did an episode about 1995, the taxis. He would have been looking more rough shape because there was no ACs. These taxis were pieces of trash in 1995. But would you believe it? He jumps on here. He must have been scoping out our show. And he says, hey, I got a taxi that is fresh from Florida. They were brand new taxis and they all had ACs. And when I pulled up, I was fresh out the AC. This came out of his mouth. I shit you not. You know, I could, bring all these things up to you, but I'm just going to tell you, and this is real. This is not me embellishing. This is his words. I pulled up. I was in the AC. That's the reason why I look so fresh and so clean. So now he gets out the key. But here's the problem. He says in True Crime Garage that he got to the scene at 9:45, 10 o'clock. How's that possible, Detective Todd McGhee? How's that possible when the body got found at 9:45? Right? So then he gets on my show. We're having the same talk, and he jumps in the chat. And this is what he says. You can see it with your own eyes to make it simple. He says, right here, this is what time he says he got there. That's him right there, Adi Ortiz. This is what time he says he got to the scene.
Wow. Wow.
Right? So he's in a pickle because he's got to get there early enough to get on the street. But now his main thing is when he talks to us, when I got there, Janet was already gone. Because everybody's saying, nah, Janet was still there when he was there, which made him there right on the scene. But he doesn't want to be there when Janet's still there. So he says, no, Janet was already gone. Okay, but if Janet was already gone, Adi, how the fuck did you get on the street?
His timeline's way off.
Way off. So it gets but here's the better thing. So now we pull that all apart, Todd, because I'm actually a Massachusetts state trooper. I'm undercover, just to let you know. But now,
love it.
Right? So Kevy Kev wasn't letting him off the hook. Kevy Kev was like, well, how did you know to go to the hospital? Because, how did you know to call the hospital on the scene? Because he claims he knew the condition of her on the scene. He called the hospital. Well, how'd you know to call the hospital? Who told you to call the hospital? How did you know? Because if you got the call from your wife, Carol, at home, why wouldn't you go in the house and call her at the house? What made you so sure she went to the hospital? And how'd you know? How'd she know to go to the hospital? So you know what he says again? This is what he says. Now, keep in mind, his first initial take on this, Todd, this is going to blow your fucking mind, man. You might want to put your badge back on and go grab that 9mm you got in that fucking drawer back there and might want to go get this guy. Because he turns around now and says, I knew to go to the hospital because before I hung up with her, she told me she was going to the hospital. Right? So keep in mind, he gets a call at South Station And now she tells him she's going to the hospital, which means he's saying now it's after 10:22, right? Because now she knows what happened to her, right? So she says, I'm going to the hospital. But but there's a huge problem with that. If she's going to Mass General and she's telling you she's going to Mass General, why'd you go back to Somerville?
Why don't you go to Mass General?
Why didn't you go to Mass General? And it gets a little bit better than that. So now he's still standing on that. I don't know what happened to Janet. I got no idea. The first time I heard Janet got taken out in an ambulance, though, was from Gina. Gina's the one that told me. But I said, bro, you had to know what happened to Janet. There had to be context of why she's telling you she's going to the hospital. Now, now to his credit, he might not exactly know what happened to Janet, but he knew she was going to the hospital for Janet.
And he's already in the city. Quick question. How far is it from South Station to Mass General? 6-7 minutes.
Exactly. And why? And, the other question, like JFK just brought up, he scoots back to Somerville. With a 6-minute ride to Mass General, why wouldn't he be there with his wife that just, found out that something happened to his sister-in-law?
Yeah, is she going to be okay? What's her status?
All right, so now I'm kind of going backwards of how we found this information out, but it really doesn't matter at this point how we found it, front or back. So now, just to keep it moving, we talked to Adi, and he says to us, when we asked him, did you ever go in that house before? Have you ever been in the house? And he says to us this. I'm going to play the soundbite. I just got to find it. Give me 1 second.
He also called in, Todd, and talked to us.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, and he hasn't been out of the chat since. He's probably lurking right now.
Wow.
So when we first initially talked to him, he was probably on the 3rd episode. Now, the thing is, what he didn't understand was the power of the live stream, that it's a loop. Where you could come on here tomorrow, we could kind of just go over this again, and everybody will still watch it because it's like we're investigating on the stream, right? It's the power of it, and people love it. Everybody gets involved. He thought that he could set the narrative up like it's a podcast. We were going to post it, and now it's out there memorialized, and it was good. But he didn't realize that we were going to just pick it apart and investigate the whole thing over and over again. So this is what we asked him. We asked him, did you go in there after it was all said and done? And this is what he says.
I went in about 4 or 5 hours after to get the kitty litter box and the kitten. That was it. And what I seen, to this day, I don't wish anyone to see what I saw. I went in about 4 or 5 hours after to get the kitty litter box and the kitten. That was it. And what I seen, to this day, I don't wish anyone to see what I saw.
He said he went in 4 or 5 hours after on a murder scene, Todd. Is that possible?
They never would have let they never would have opened up the crime scene that soon.
No.
No way.
And
they would have held that crime scene till at least the next morning.
And, that's where, when we were trying to explain when the CPAP, the CPAC showed up, and the state police photography, they showed up later than that too. So you got the initial state police, CPAC, the photos. Now that they got their own photography division.
But here's the thing. He says he went in to get the kitty litter and the kitten, right? So now, Todd, right? And I hate to cut you off, Kev, but we had him up here for 1 hour and 29 minutes. I don't want to hold him much longer, right?
I'm good.
You're
brother.
good?
Go ahead.
You're good? All right, cool. So, and I appreciate you, Todd. Trust and believe that. So now, right? Kev's not having it because now we find out there's a dog. Now, in the police report, it says that The officer walks in the house and the dog is laying next to Janet. Gets up, walks over to the officer, bites the officer's hand, and pulls the officer over to where Janet's at. So Adi never mentions the dog, but he says about the cats. He never mentions the dog. Like she had a dog, which is kind of like, why not? Right? So, but the problem with this is, right? We know he didn't go in 4 or 5 hours after. So we're like, that's a lie. And then we find out there's a dog. And then the crazier part about the whole shit is we find out there's no cats.
But we find out that this cat hairs all over Janet.
Yeah.
And it was a big inquiry at trial.
And she don't have a cat, and the O'Briens didn't have a cat.
No.
So, and now after 30 years, Adi's the first person to say that he went in that house for a cat.
So now Adi jumps in the chat, right? He's a frequent flyer in the chat, Todd. He jumps in the chat, and this is what he says. Laugh out loud. Ha ha. Ha ha. Cats got you, sucker, all fucked up in your face. It was dog food. That's one thing he wrote, right? He erased that. Now, keep in mind, this one right here, the timeline one, here's another thing I want to tell you. When he wrote that, I got there at 9:45. He erased that. He retracted it immediately when I went, realized he was caught up. But so now with the dog food to stay there, this is the first message that he wrote. Laugh out loud. Never. Ha ha. Cats. There. I got you, sucker. All fucked up in your face. It was dog food, right? And then he erases that, right? Which he realizes he kind of went in too hard with that. He erases that and he comes in a little bit softer and he says, I mean, this is insane. I mean, it really is, as I'm even looking at this stuff. He says right here, he says, boom, 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 boom. I got so much stuff on this case. It's insane.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot. It really is. It's a lot. Hell is it? This is what he says right here now. Now, keep in mind, this is the guy who's been on all these threads speaking for the murder of Janet Downing, that, this guy Eddie should not get out. He's a piece of shit. Now, this is what he writes. I said cats because I wanted to see how you guys would run with it and see how you really are. I went in for the dog food. That's it. Yeah, I know you're going to say I'm lying, but whatever.
Can't clean it up now.
No.
Can't clean it up now. Oh, but he does. So, he does. Now he does. So now he turns around.
Come on.
And he says, yeah. I mean, do you want to put the badge back on now? Can you deputize all of us? We'll go out and get
them. Man. This is crazy. You just did all the work for the defense team.
That's what I'm saying. They don't. The funny thing is that I don't think they. Yeah. Well, that's another story. That's another story. Yeah. I mean, you're right.
Calm down, J.F.K.
Yeah, calm down. Yeah, I'm glad someone praises us for our work. Thank you, Todd. I appreciate that. Now, he turns around now and he says, "This. I mean, I can't make this shit up, Todd. I mean, I wish I could make this shit up, man. I wouldn't waste your time, Todd. Number one, you know that I'm not wasting your time. You're too professional to be wasting your time, and I really appreciate you being here. But now he goes on and he says this. Ah, Jesus, Adi. Goddamn Adi, man. Where is it now? He says, I think it's right here, right? Is this the one? He says, just like this, he says, No, they didn't call me up to do that. I went the next day to see how the investigation was going. At that point, he wasn't arrested yet. So now he says that he went the next day, right? Because we said there's no way you went 4 or 5 hours after. He said, no, I went the next day now to see how the investigation was going. At that point, he wasn't arrested yet. And then he said, I'm not sure who took the cat out or the dog. My apologies. I misspoke earlier, right? I went in just to get the kitty litter box, right? And I asked him where the kitty litter box was, and he says it was in the kitchen. Now, there's a huge problem with that. There's a huge problem with that. And I'm about to show you some more. Just one more thing. So now he lies and he said he went in the next day seeing how the investigation was going. And he said he went in the kitchen to get the kitty litter box. All right. And I'm going to take you inside the house real quick. This is the house, Todd. If she was found right there in the dining room, right? He would have to go through the murder scene to go to the kitchen to get a kitty litter box. No cat. No cat. There's no cat. No one had a cat.
They don't own a cat.
They don't own a cat. That was a big inquiry in the medical examiners. But explain what they found on it, because you break it down pretty good, Kev. Go ahead.
You know, he says kittens, and they end up finding several white feline hair on amongst her, like one on her inner thigh, one on her blouse that she had, one on the palm of her hand. They also find black feline hairs. And they also find canine hairs. So they do set in the police reports. They have it all separated out to what these hairs went to.
It's crazy.
It is. It is.
So I get it, brother. Go ahead. Don't worry about it, bro. I get it. Right. So the point is, there was a big, so now we didn't get to see the trial. So we talked to Margot, who was there from day one. And Margot says in 30 years, she never heard about a cat. Never heard they had a cat. And then she says that there was a big inquiry, right, of that at trial with the medical examiner. They stood there like, could them hairs be transferred from the one who did it? And it sounded like he was trying to get ahead of it now in 2026, 2025. But I got one more thing for you, Todd. Now, 30 feet from the taxi, behind the taxi, they found a trail of blood behind his cab. He goes on a podcast, True Crime Garage in 2020, and says the next day he's seen the blood. But when he was on our show, he said he's seen it that night. And he stands on it. And he said, I seen it that night. And then when I asked him, did he tell the cop that there was blood in back of his cab? He says, no, I didn't tell him. There was blood in back of his cab. But here's the problem. He was parked at the stop sign, right? Where you guys want to, let me see if I got that video for him real quick. You guys got me working over here. I'm about to fire my whole staff, Todd. They should be doing all this work, Todd. Goddamn, Todd. So here's the video of the don't tell me I got locked out. How'd that happen? Don't tell me that. Continue as J.F.K. for sure. My session expired? Nah, we ain't doing all that. Yeah, so you want to put some context to where he was parked at?
He was parked 15 feet, 15, 20 feet from the stop sign from Boston Street and Hamlet Street. And where he was parked, it lined up with Janet. The back of his car was lined up with Janet's foyer door, the front door that everyone used.
All right, I'm gonna show you some videos real quick. All right, so here we go. I'm working too over here. So this video is of where Adi was parked that night. This is the house, 71 Boston Street. You guys see that? Is it up?
See the house?
No, I see
Yeah,
the blueprint of the house.
Layout.
The house is up though. Oh no, it's still up.
No.
The blueprint of the house. Oh, okay, my bad. All right, let me pull this up. There we go. We in there. All right. So explain what you're seeing. What's going on, Jay? Well, Jay Brill actually says it, so we'll just play it.
Janet's house. That's the foyer. You know. And then we look over here across the street. There goes Eddie O'Brien's house. And then that's Regina's house. So we start here. The foyer, walkway, sidewalk, corner, Hamlet Street. This is Boston Street. Stop sign. Now, where my truck is parked is where Regina said Artie's cab was parked.
And there was blood, right? So where would 30 feet behind that cab, right? Where would that blood be? Would it be at that stop sign?
Yeah.
Right? So that's where the blood was found.
The ambulance was parked right here, you see. Boston Street, Hamlet Street, facing down the hill. So there's no way he could have did a three-point turn or whatever he said he did. Then we go down here. There's a little path. The sidewalk on the side of Janet's house. That's the foyer right there. The back porch. The wall. This is where Regina said Eddie jumped down from at the end of these shrubs. Then I'm going to jump up on this wall quick. This is the door he came out of. So that door wasn't there. It wasn't there. She told me after I made this video that cement wall around the door was built after the new people moved in. So there's a door behind that door connected to the house.
So you see how he ran. You see in what we did, right? How he connects to Hamlet. So he basically ran out the back. You see what we're doing here, right, Todd?
Yep, I'm following you.
His little pathway.
Because that's how he ran. Boom! He comes right down off that little drop.
But he jumped off the wall. Regina said he possibly could have ran through that little,
but he didn't,
alleyway to get to Burger King. This is Hamlet. And
now the problem is, Adi says on this show, right? On this show, he says that the blood is from Eddie running out the house. But his car was parked way up there. So how's that possible? So that's the street, man. That's basically, what we got here. So now Eddie, let's make some more clarity. There was DNA under the fingertips of Janet Downing. They ran it to Eddie, just to him. And guess what, Todd? It didn't come back as his. It doesn't match. It doesn't match.
So here's some thoughts.
Go ahead. Thank you.
The blood in the back was from him discarding his clothing. Artie discarding his clothing. Right? You peel off your layers, you throw it over your shoulder, so at least if someone's looking at me, I'm clean. Blood in the back seat is from an outer garment. Going back to the truth serum, that evidence being held is enough for a mistrial, and it is enough for an appeal by itself. The
Well,
lack of DNA.
He's got a Rule 30 coming up in June, so he's going back in front. Just to let you know. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The DNA of the nails not matching. Add that on top. The peculiar behavior stuff. Again, as I said, he didn't say anything because his grandfather told him in a random conversation, you ever get picked up by the cops, you don't say nothing. Okay, Grandpa. And that he never mentioned it after 30 years because it was a passing conversation. That's the way I was taught. That's the way I was raised. That's not suspicious.
But if he's seen Artie in the house and he knows it's Artie, you think he should say something?
I don't want to be a snitch.
Yeah, but he was 15. I get it. But he was 15 years old at the time. He was a baby and he wasn't living that life. So how's he a snitch? You know what I mean? I mean, you look at it from that perspective. I don't think anybody would look at him as a snitch.
Go ahead, Kevin.
At this point in his life, keeping this to himself for 30 years, if he accuses somebody else where he's residing and living in a penitentiary, it could cause him some problems.
No one.
You don't think so?
Nah, no. Nope. No. Absolutely not. Because he was 15 when he did it and he didn't have, you know how the saying goes. If you're living, I gotta cut you, you're getting that back. If you're living that life and you rat someone out, you're a rat. But if you're not living that life and you're a citizen and you say someone did it, no one can hold, like, I can't hold nothing against you, Todd, if you see someone, did something and you were a citizen and you reported a crime. That's what you're supposed to do. But he didn't do anything. So you got to go. And remember when I started this, I want to go through the lens of 1995. I don't think that the people in there is as much time as he did. One thing that don't change is the politics. So, and that would be like something people would talk about, right? Is he a snitch? Well, technically, no, because he was 15 and he wasn't living that life. So I don't think it's because of that.
Even if I'm not about that life, I can't say the guy under the mask was Artie. So do I sound credible?
So do you believe he got jumped and got cut?
Hard to say.
Now he does got an affidavit of a man. Now they put out a $10,000 reward, and somebody did pop up and write an affidavit and said they did see him getting jumped, but that person passed on. Now to get a little bit deeper, right?
Until 2 years later, either.
Now keep in mind, here's a big thing about Adi too, right? Adi says that his wife Carol called him, right? And now here's the big thing, though. This is when it gets tricky. Todd. Right? And I'm about to open up your mind a little bit. If Carol called him, and now he's throwing Carol in the mix. My wife called me. Hit the dispatch up, right? I pull over, go to Peter Pan. I get on the call with her. Now, he's been saying this story from day one with his wife, right? But if Adi did this, right, that means this whole story about him being at South Station is a fucking lie because he was there. So if that's a lie, that his wife knows he's lying, which means his Carol knows Adi had something to do with her sister's death. Do you agree with that?
I agree with it. Now I'm trying to think of motive. What was the relationship between Adi and the sister-in-law, Janet?
Well, she did kick him out.
It was Rocky.
Yeah. It was Rocky. She kicked him out. And he was, the word on the street is he was selling drugs. So if you fucked up his operation, right, and you messed up his comfort zone, and if he was still keeping the stash in the house. See, my thing is this, the biggest problem I have is the bra situation, right? So if there was no bra situation, you would assume that he's downstairs in the basement. She knows he's there. He comes upstairs. He freaks out, they fight, boom, and now it happens, right? The problem is, why did he take the bra off? Now, Kevy Kev has a thought. He says maybe she had the bra up and was using that to like a shield.
And yeah,
right. So I think it could be something like that. He got caught in the house because in order for Eddie O'Brien to do this crime, it's a premeditated thing, and that's exactly how they say. They say that he changed his clothes. Like in the court, in the trial, they said that he changed his clothes. So but when he ran out the house and Mako seen him come out the house. So let me play a little bit of testimony real quick from Mako, the kid. Now keep in mind, now let me just ask you this question. Now Mako knocked on the door at 9:20, right? So technically he's on the murder scene. He's there when it happens. So when he's knocking on the door, Janet is on the floor. You know what I mean? The killer's still in the house, right? So the state troopers know that. So did they force them to say it was Eddie? Like, you know what I mean? Kind of put you sure it ain't Eddie? You sure it ain't him? You sure it ain't him that you didn't see? Because at first, the first two times, Mako said, I don't know who it was that jumped out the bushes. But the problem is, there's a lot of layers, but I'm going to take you here. Now, Mako's on the scene at 9:20, right? And he goes across the street. Now, if he just seen Eddie, he said he just seen Eddie coming out the house. And his testimony is Eddie's looking crazy. Gives him a crazy look like he just did something bad. The problem with that is, Todd, is that he goes across the street and he uses Eddie's phone with Big Ed. And he never tells Ed's dad, hey, I just seen Eddie come out the house looking like a cyborg. He never says that. Now, to make matters even worse, at 10 o'clock after they find out she got stabbed, they get the call on the radio that Eddie's down at Midnight Variety. So you know what they do? They go down there, Mako and his boys, and they confront Eddie. But at that point, they don't know Eddie did it, right? But they never mention to Eddie, because at that point, they're still friends, but they never mention to Eddie right there and then that I just seen you coming out the bushes. What happened? They stabbed you too? They're going along with the story that he just got jumped. Now, if you know that Janet just got stabbed in the house and you just seen him coming out the house, you would be like, yo, I just see you running out the bushes, but they never mention it. So my thing is, did he even see Eddie coming out the bushes? Now, Eddie is not denying that he came out them bushes like that. He's not denying that. So he's saying, yeah, they could have seen me. But let me show you Mako in 1995. This is a grown-ass man now. He's looking like me now. But let me show you some of his testimony, what he said about Ed in the trial. Mako, there he is.
I said, Ed, why were you in the bushes last night? And he said, I wasn't in the bushes. And I said, I seen you in the bushes. And he said, I wasn't in the bushes, so I just left.
Now, so keep in mind, this is the next day. So he had that night at Midnight Variety to ask that question. But the next day, after he got interrogated by the police, he pops up at Eddie's house, probably wired up for sound. You know what I mean? And he asked Eddie that. And Eddie says, no, you didn't see me in the bushes. And this is Eddie's
I asked him, I said, Ed, why were you in the bushes last night? And he said, I wasn't in the bushes. And I said, I seen you in the bushes. And he said, I wasn't in the bushes, so I just left it at that.
Marco Abreu, Eddie O'Brien's old friend, today the star witness, recounting how he saw the hawkish teen walking away from the area of the crime scene.
Could you see his face at that point?
Yes, he looked over his right shoulder at me and smiled.
And could you describe what you saw?
Him smiling, his eyes were wide open.
O'Brien seemed amused when Abreu recreated his body language, showing how he had appeared when he walked not far from Janet Downing's house not long after the murder.
Now, did you make arrangements at that time to give a second interview?
Abreu conceded to the defense in the first two interviews with police. He said he couldn't be sure it was Eddie O'Brien. Moments later, he told the district attorney why.
After you spoke to your mother, what happened?
I told her that I was 100% sure that was Ed the whole time. The only reason I didn't say anything was because I didn't want to believe that he committed the crime.
What happened next?
It sounds like the Stadies were like, listen, dude, you're gonna go to prison for the rest of your life if you don't say it's Eddie. That's what it sounds like. But that's
but why didn't he say? Why didn't he say he came out of the bushes covered in blood?
Yeah, he didn't say he was covered. That's what I'm saying. There was no blood.
Right.
Right.
That's a great point. That's a great point, though.
Lieutenant Femino and Trooper Duggan, and they came to my house.
Brew conceded it was after an angry conversation with Eddie O'Brien's father that he went to his mother with the whole story.
He asked me what I had told the police down at the police station. I told him I thought it was Ed, and he didn't approve of that. He didn't really think I should have did that, but I told him I couldn't lie to the police. So.
Did he lose his temper?
I don't think so. Well, he lost his temper, but I don't think it was at me.
Okay. Did he tell you not to come around the house anymore?
Yes.
And then did you stab her?
No.
You didn't hurt Janet Downing?
No.
Did you kill her?
No.
Eddie O'Brien denied the murder both
October 30th, 1995. So before in closing, Todd, let's take it all the way back to 1995. Is it possible that 15-year-old whacked out on drugs like that? Is he fucking lying? Under your professional opinion, do you think that kid could maintain a lie underneath them type of drugs?
Impossible.
Mm.
One word, impossible.
Mm.
Wow.
That's grounds for an appeal right there.
So can I ask you a question about back then in the 90s? About the blood and stuff?
Go for it.
Did they use that luminol or whatever they do to detect blood back then like they do now?
Yeah,
And
that technology was around.
Body?
That technology was around back then.
Would they have tested Eddie's body if, there was a crime like this with that much blood?
They should have just collected the clothes off his back.
They did. But there was no blood.
It was blood on his pants. Her blood was on his pants. But that was because
you match up the description.
He was in shorts and the blood was on his shin.
Yeah, on his shorts. There was blood on his shorts. I think there was blood. There was a little bit of blood on his shorts, I think.
Right, but the
like
crime
I said,
scene.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The crime scene dictates that there should have been a massive amount of blood transfer.
Yes, facts.
Now,
and that's
JFK. Do you have a picture of the dining room?
Yeah, I have a picture of the dining room. But before I do that, right, I'm gonna take us one step, right? We're creeping up to the 2-hour mark, right? So I'm gonna play Eddie right now at his parole hearing. So he had the parole hearing October 24 based on the law that we told you. They went back in time and they flipped the law, so he's eligible. He waived it 2013, 2014, 15, 16. You can't take parole in Massachusetts unless you say you did the crime. He won't admit to it. But he did the parole hearing, the whole thing, to have content, so to speak, right? In other better words, to just show that he's still standing on his square, that he didn't do this. So I'm just gonna play a little bit of that so you can see where he is now. Look at him now and tell me what you see as an investigator, as a person who has 24 years in law enforcement. You've been on the streets, you know a thing or two. You tell me in conclusion, and everything I'm telling you right now, Todd, is not being biased. You know what I mean? I'm telling you everything about Adi. These are all the things I uncovered. This is the story. There is some things with Eddie, basically, if it's when it comes down to his story, the holes in his story is what I told you. He was acting funny with the girl, saying things about her. He said he was going to hurt somebody. All these different things that can make you say, but did he do this crime? And then in the window of 10 minutes, and you would have to believe that. It's premeditated that he went in the house. He did that. He changed his clothes. He got rid of the murder weapon, then got confronted by the police, manipulated the police, right? Then all these years later, never slipped up in jail, never slipped up in DYS. They put some rats around him, man, like to make him slip up. He never slipped up, and you would have to think that he's that calculated. You know what I mean? And then even underneath that, whacked out on whatever they gave him there, he manipulated that too. You would have to believe all that he did this crime. And then you got the cab driver who lost his key and his timeline's all fucked up. Who do you believe? I don't know. That doesn't mean that Artie did it, but I mean, what does it mean? What does it mean? Like, you know what I mean? Because he's not giving me an explanation. Oh, okay, let me just say this. And to boot, Todd McGhee, we offered Artie $2,100 to explain himself for 15 minutes, right? That's how much money we got up to explain why his timeline's so messed up and what's going on. And just come up here and shoot the shit face to face. Why? Like, give us, like, if you're telling the truth, you ain't got nothing to worry about. Take the 2,100. Even if you're off a little bit, come take the money. He didn't take it. 2,100 for 15 minutes, man. Pretty
They
crazy.
said after he already came on, said he wouldn't. We couldn't pay him enough to come back on.
So let me just play a little bit of Eddie real quick. Because he's actually going to court right now because this hearing right here that you see, it was actually like a mini trial. They were asking him all types of questions, which they shouldn't have did that, but it's not good for what they did for parole purposes, but for what we do, it kind of like, you're kind of getting an interrogation a little bit and getting to understand like what happened again all over again. Let me just hit this StreamYard. Where we at? We going to Eddie. All right, boom. Let's go.
Correct.
And 2 weeks later, after consulting with the lawyers, you decided to tell the truth regarding that?
That is correct.
And why was it you decided not to tell the truth initially?
I think it was just being stupid, scared. I think it was my belief that I didn't do this. This is just a mistake. They'll probably find out who did it. And then
This was your best friend's mother, your next door neighbor. Why would you not say something at that point?
When that night?
Once you observed what you did.
What do you mean? I didn't do anything.
No, once you observed what you saw.
He caught that quick.
When I say did, I meant what you actually
saw. I understand. That is one of the biggest regrets I have. I wish I had an answer for you. I just think it was the shock. I mean, I can't explain it. You're right. I should have.
Okay, and you said you saw someone in there? And that's where you want to leave it? You don't want to indicate who that person was or anything?
That's correct.
And you maintained that for your 29 years in prison?
Except for those first 2 weeks.
Okay. Now, as far as disclosing who that person was?
What I like to say is I don't want people to believe me what I have to say. The evidence is going to speak for it. And there's a lot of evidence there that doesn't, there's DNA profiles there that's not me.
So I got one specific question.
Go ahead.
That I'm trying to ask.
Yep.
Did you at any point specifically identify someone else?
Probably not.
Never?
Never.
Okay. And the reason for not doing that was what?
I don't think anyone cares to hear what I have to say about that. Especially back then.
Not even to a close family member?
Oh, I mean, that's different.
Well, have you or no?
That's correct.
You did?
I have,
You have,
yes.
Okay, but that never came out to assist you in any way over the years?
No. My lawyers at that time during the trials, the transfer hearings, as you can see, they didn't put on a defense.
Okay.
They didn't put anything on. He wanted more money, and that's all he cared about. No experts, no challenging. We were made promises about everything, and we had nothing.
If you did do this crime, it would be pretty concerning. This is not an average murder. This is very sadistic. There's indication there might be some sexual violence involved. 98 times she was stabbed or slashed. What do you think in terms of rehabilitation that would take?
I can't answer that. I don't know. That's
The only reason I'm asking you that is because you were convicted by a jury.
yep.
You've been trying to appeal this for how many years now?
Well, I've never filed an appeal. It seems like there's always
So
been
you had the initial appeal after you were convicted.
it was the direct appeal, correct?
Okay. And since then, you didn't file any further appeals?
So after that direct appeal, my attorney was working on the case, had a heart attack. It took me several years to find new attorneys. This is actually how I met Jack. I had a law firm that came into this case from Washington, D.C. They needed local counsel. They wanted to overturn the juvenile life sentence issue in Massachusetts. And that's all they really much cared about. They wanted to overturn it. Then we were asked not to file anything because the publicity on my filing might have affected the issue. So we took a step back on that.
That's crazy.
After the juvenile issue came about, they didn't really stick around. And that's when someone put my name in for the Innocence Program. After a review, they accepted it. And then it just didn't work out with those initial attorneys, but the attorneys that I have now, it's working out, and we're about to file.
All right, so I'm going to read to you some portions of prior testimony from the transfer. I just want to get you to comment on it and see what your thoughts are. I understand that Dr. Kinshirf wrote an updated evaluation concerning it, but I believe he was also involved in the evaluation concerning the transfer.
He had some part of I was never evaluated by him, but I know he did testify for the defense, for the prosecution at that time.
So I just want to read you some portion just to get your thoughts on this. And I'm not sure if his position is still the same today, but I'm curious as to what you think of his opinion then. It said that Dr. Kinshirf testified that assuming the material reviewed are accurate and true, including evidence that the perpetrator watched the victim undress, that the perpetrator made numerous comments concerning the victim's sexual orientation, that the injuries to the victim were as set forth in the autopsy report and testimony of the medical examiner, and assuming there were numerous cuts consistent with being cut with a knife to the victim's bra. Those factors made him extremely concerned, and I think they're referring to Dr. Kinshirf when they said that this behavior represents a sexualized nature to the assault, which takes this to the domain of possibility, sexualized sadism or sexualized sexual attack, which, if it also involved gratuitous mutilation of the body and the death of the victim, placed this in a category both a very dangerous individual, but amongst those generally thought to be the least amenable to rehabilitation. What do you think of that? This is all supposition if you had committed this crime.
Yes. Yeah. So I think two answers to that. Number one, you have Dr. Kinshirf here today to speak on that. And number two, the evidence he was presented was either false, fabricated, or made up, and he wasn't given the whole evidence at that time by DA Tom Riley. The opinion, what he made his opinion on, was the evidence Tom Riley presented to him. It wasn't evidence of the whole case.
Right. So he was assuming you did it, basically. Not that just assuming if it were true.
My talks with Dr. Kinshirf was he never made the opinion that it was me.
No, I get that.
No, just not whether I'm, it was if yes,
you were the individual who committed such a crime,
right,
then you'd fit a certain profile, is what he's suggesting. But he's not saying you did it.
Right.
I just want to make
if I might, Mr. Coleman, in the transfer hearings, there was a Part A and a Part B, and the Part A would be is there probable cause to believe the person committed the crime. With Mr. O'Brien's case, There was no Part A because.
So that's Eddie O'Brien now. That was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
You got any thoughts?
Yeah, lots. So his demeanor, very well prepared, very well spoken. In the chat, someone mentioned cool and calm. Absolutely, I agree. Didn't mince his words, didn't have to think about anything. The fact that he didn't speak this stuff, he's a 15-year-old kid. Underdeveloped brain. They're saying that the human brain doesn't develop until after the age of 23. Think about that. Now you've got a kid who's being charged with something that's just horrible. He's got his grandfather, former chief of police, telling him how to conduct himself. He's got his dad telling him how to conduct himself. All that's in the mix. You got a friend that says, I seen you coming out of the yard. This is a theory. There was something about he used to watch her through a telescope.
Yeah.
Maybe he was in the yard peeking in the windows.
You know what I was thinking about that telescope thing? Remember how Jeannie had that video of Paul saying to Jeannie that he watches her through his window getting undressed and stuff? And he's the one who said that Eddie was watching through the telescope.
Yeah.
If that's the case, take it one step further. I'm going to sneak in the back of the house. I know my way around. I'm going to go across the street, first of all, right? Because of close proximity of the two homes. And I'm just going to kind of hang around and maybe peep in a window, and I see what I see. Right? Doesn't make him a murderer.
Could it make him scared that when he did get charged with something, he just wanted to be quiet because he might have been guilty of something, like you said right there?
Yeah,
you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I'm embarrassed. I don't want anyone to know I was looking in the windows.
Right. I can dig that.
Right. So it's when you start kind of offering these other perspectives, it makes sense why he didn't say a whole lot. One, I don't want to tell him myself. Two, my grandpa told me, shut my mouth and call me or your father if you ever get in trouble with the cops. Right? I'm not buying his blood being found inside the house, being
You're not
planted by
buying that?
him. Not by Eddie cross transfer of blood.
So, quick question: you're a Massachusetts State Trooper, retired. Back then we see a lot of shady shit now with the Massachusetts State Police. Do you think back then? Now keep in mind Riley was on the scene too. The DA was on the scene. Now keep in mind he's trying to get the predator law, the super predator law that you're well aware of. You remember what they did when they got who jumped off the Tobin. When Stewart jumped off the Tobin, they ended up getting the stop and frisk law. I mean, you were stopping frisking dudes, I'm sure too, because you could. I mean, it was a law. You could just walk up and say, "Hey, you fit. What do you got on you?" Go right in their pockets.
Right? Practice until you couldn't do it anymore.
There you go. Did you do it?
Yes.
That's crazy, right? And now that's a legal search and seizure. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Funny,
Fourth Amendment
right?
violation. Fourth Amendment violation.
So he's got this face, right? This, big dude. I mean, it's a unicorn case. This guy's 6'1". He looks like a man, but he's a kid. Baby face, but he's big enough to do this crime. And I want to get the law changed, the super predator law, and I want to target. I want to get youthful offenders. I want to change the juvenile law so I can make a push in a political way. But if I go after a kid in Dorchester, or if I go after a kid he's Middlesex County, so if I go after a kid in Lowell, if I go after a kid in Cambridge, right? Even the inner part of Somerville, a black kid, there's going to be pushback. You're just trying to, but he's trying to change the law everywhere, the whole state. You know what I mean? And Governor Weld is with him. Now, keep in mind, a judge did grant them bail. December 22nd of 1995, the judge granted him bail, $20,000. and they drove him from Plymouth to Cambridge Jail over there on 3rd Street. They drove him there, and then Riley went and appealed it in court and got it appealed, and they took it away when he was a juvenile. He was that close to getting bailed out as a juvie, right? Now, the point is, Riley uses him as the face of changing the law, and this is in the book. There's a book called Politics of Murder. If you want, we could get it sent to you. If you want to, if you got a PO box or whatever, I don't know how. We're good guys.
Yeah, we'll work it out offline. Yeah.
Yeah. You could read the book. Yeah, you can email the book to him, right? Yeah, and there's a book called Politics of Murder. Margot Nash got all the facts that you need in this book. But the point is, they used him as the face to be like, listen, we're not going after the kids in the hood. We're not going after Roxbury Dorchester. Look, we're looking for guys like this. But as soon as they get that law passed, you know who they're going after. And you know it more than anybody.
So if I'm a DA and I have an agenda, this case checks enough boxes for me to move on that agenda. You hear me?
Right.
There's enough here for me there's enough on the wall to stick to get me to the finish line. That's what this case is.
And he's a boy in a man's body, so.
So I'm gonna show you I'm gonna show you an interview right before he gets convicted of 1997, Cambridge jail. He's in a white jumpsuit. Right after
he gets DNA expert, J.F.K.
Say what? What are you saying?
What about showing him that DNA expert video?
What do you mean DNA expert? What are you talking about?
The one who said, well, the DNA in the court, the DNA expert.
Oh, yeah. Hey, do me a favor, Kev. Put yourself on mute. You're getting mad kickback, bro. This is him.
Our exclusive interview took place in the presence of O'Brien's lawyer, who would not allow him to answer detailed questions about the night of the murder.
She's my best friend's mother, and she treated me with respect. I gave her the respect back. No, I think she was out of my age, but she was in her 40s. I was 17, 15, actually. I was looking for teenage girls if I was ever had a crush on someone.
When you heard that she was murdered,
yes,
what were your thoughts?
It hit deep, I know that. It was my best friend's mother.
The 17-year-old's bedroom in Somerville is just as he left it 2 years ago. A student at Don Bosco High School, O'Brien had tried out for football and made the team, but the coach wouldn't use him, saying he wasn't tough enough.
Yeah. I never went into a rage. I was never mad. I'm still kind of laid back. I take things as they are.
Did you kill Janet Downing?
Absolutely not, he says. That was in 1997.
Wow. Hey, fantastic job on this. Absolutely put together an incredible case here, and everything that you brought up should lead to that, to some type of a retrial.
Can I ask one more question?
Jay, bro,
it's a discussion, bro. Go ahead, man. Do it.
Do you ever know someone who committed a crime? Obviously, I don't know if there's been crimes like this, but similar to this that has never committed again?
I know there's several cases where, and I wanted to speak to this. Thank you for that question, Jay, bro. Confirmation bias. In investigations, I mentioned earlier when you like someone for a crime, but if you don't go through, and this is what happened in the Karen Reed trial, they liked Karen for the trial because there was enough information, there was enough peculiarities to bring charges and levy charges against her, only because they stopped pursuing other persons of possible interest. So when you stop investigating all potential angles and options and then push your whole case towards one person, then you got guilty people walking away free.
Well, I think I'm thinking more along the lines where, since he was convicted about this, do you think he would have any, problems in jail committing another offense similar or out of rage?
Violence in jail. He's saying, like, stab someone in jail.
Out of rage, no. I obviously I'd hope he'd protect himself, but to initiate something in a violent manner, that's not his demeanor.
What I'm saying, what he's saying is, if he did this crime,
right?
I think what he's saying is, if he was guilty of this crime and he was this crazy, would that come out sooner or later in that 30 years? Would someone have got shit at
Wouldn't he commit another crime like that?
You don't stab someone over 90 times and it's a one and done. That rage doesn't go away.
Okay.
And do you think they would? You think they would put him on the cooking line? Think they'd put him in the kitchen peeling potatoes?
In Cambridge jail, yeah, I do, because I was there with him. That jail was a fucking. It was dangerous. It was dangerous. They would do some stupid shit like that, yes. But no, I get what you're saying, Kevin. But yes, to that, yes.
Wow.
But Todd, listen, you got anything to say in closing, Todd? You want to say anything to the O'Briens? We got one of his friends here. He calls himself Shooting. Is here. I'll just kind of shorten his name because probably not appropriate. So, yeah, just
informants.
yeah. We just call him informants. He's got a crazy handle. One of his friends are here. I know Trish is probably here. And Eddie O'Brien Senior's here. I'm sure. And Adi,
there's a good possibility that Eddie O'Brien is watching us, because I think they shut it. They locked him down about 9 o'clock.
Well, Eddie, if you're watching, you got a case, my friend. You've got a case. Stay the course. I don't know who your counsel was back then. The chat picked up on it. They were horrible. You got a horrible defense, and whatever you're doing to educate yourself as far as the legal system goes, stay the course. There's enough here to support whatever claims that you have.
Yeah, my man. I'd love to have you back anytime. We could go back. There's even more to talk about for sure.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Todd, were you ever stationed North Commons Barracks? The Army barracks on the North Common.
No, I was stationed out of Medford, A4, right there at in the circle there. Yep, was out of there.
Oh, you were right there. Oh, so you were right there by Assembly Square, Meadow Glen, Wellington.
Yep.
Nice. So you was in his neck of the woods. You were right there.
Yes, I was.
You were right there. Wow, that's crazy. Yep. Would you believe it? Well, Todd, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your time, Todd, and let's talk real soon. And I appreciate it. If you want to say anything in closing, go for it.
Oh, guys, it's an honor to be on with you. Yes, let's please do this again and continue to just keep peeling back the layers. Phenomenal job. It was great being with you guys. And this was a long time coming. We talked about doing this last year, getting together. So let's keep it rolling, fellas. Let's keep it rolling.
I appreciate you, Todd, and be safe out there, my brother.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate you all.
Peace and love, Todd. Peace. Todd, ladies and gentlemen, Todd holding it down. Put the peace signs up for Todd. Let's go.
Status selected.
Come on. yes, ladies and gentlemen, how we do it. How you guys feel about that? I mean, Todd's not hearing it. That's a Massachusetts state trooper. I mean, we need more law enforcement, more people like that. Hopefully it's a process, ladies and gentlemen. Last night you seen how we're talking because we're trying to bring official content and people with different lenses, such as Todd, who was a Massachusetts state trooper present in that time when this was going on. He was a cop, and that's he just don't understand, right? Same way we don't. And this is the type of thing to get people on the other side to come up here and talk to us and peel back the layers with Adi and see what he, what he ever said to them. But go ahead, man. Take it away, Kevy Kev. I know you were having a problem with your sound.
Yeah, I mean, I just, I thought it was a great having Todd up here with us. It gives us that investigative side, of what steps they would have took, what kind of technology they were using. I mean, some things, we find out some things were up and coming with the DNA testing, and working with, the different authorities, you know what I'm saying, and how things got passed off. When I hear him say, when I, touched upon, the physical notes of the investigators in that time frame, in that era, I tend to think maybe there could have been a little bit more in this case. I don't know. I don't want to say that things were, were shy of it, but I don't see any of that. I mean, I see a long list of evidence, and I see potential other suspects, but I don't see that dig deep. And
I got one thing to say to somebody that's watching right now that I'm pretty sure that's probably watching. His name is Robert. I don't know you, man. I don't know you, Robert. I don't even know your last name, and I don't care. I know you hit me up when this first happened, and you said that you wanted me in the documentary. Listen, man, give us the trial, please. And I mean, and let me say it. Can we please use the trial? Is that the right way to say it? I mean, we need this trial because we can bring more people involved and make more content and put more light on this if we have the trial so we can compare, so that way, it's like it's coming out of my mouth. I mean, believe me, you can trust your boy because I'm not biased. I'm not saying Eddie didn't do it. I'm not saying Eddie did it. I'm just laying down the facts. And if you think I seen someone just say J.F.K, your memory is impeccable. I appreciate that, but that's because and I mean this not trying to be tooting my own horn, because I prepare for this. I don't just sit there and click live. I've been sitting there all day thinking about how I was gonna lay this out all night last night. And I want my presentations to be tighter. I want every live to be like this, a guest breaking the key points down, not the gray areas where we're just making these stupid scenarios up. No disrespect, me too, making stupid scenarios up. I'm not really into that. You know what I mean? I'm not into lazy freestyles. My conversation is my freestyle. I don't like going, yo, everybody, check it out. My name's JFK and I rock for clout. Save that shit for fucking the karaoke machine. I want my shit to be tight. That's and I know you guys like when we're on the porch, but as soon as things go left, you guys say, "Oh my god." Screen share it. Put it on Twitter, and it's like, so but the only way we're going to continue with this mission that we're on with Eddie O'Brien if we get the content we need to keep it going. So, sorry, go ahead, Jay, bro.
We're all on the same team. We all want the same thing. Well, we all want the truth, but you know, we'll never get the truth without what we need, and we definitely need that trial video. So
yeah, that's a whole lot. How many?
We've been asking for that since the beginning of this, and we still haven't got it yet. I finally reached Court TV. They won't budge on their price. They want
$1 million
$90 a second, 50 down. And the way that works is they charge you by every second you use. So like it's all like watermarked and everything. So they know whatever you use, they're gonna find out every second you use and charge you for it. So
yeah, they're talking about $5,000 for like a minute, like whatever it is. Like, yeah, I mean that's crazy, right? And there's a guy that knows Eddie, that's working with Eddie, and I'm only putting this out there because I think today's show we brought you the state trooper, we brought you a statey, we brought you a state trooper. You know, Todd, and that was because of Francis Gigalotti brought you that. You know, Francis Gigalotti did the work for me to get introduced to Todd, to go on and shout out our boy LTL Media for having me on the show with Nan and Todd, inviting me on to talk Francis and extending that olive branch to where I could talk to Todd, have my man Jay Brill do what he does, bring him on, and here we are. And it's behind us. We just broke bread. You know, and now he's interested in the case. And it's like, okay, what more are we going to bring? I mean, there's more things to talk about. I got no problem with having Todd on the porch talking with us. I mean, I'm sure he got stories for days. I mean, he's an interesting man. I got no problem with kicking it on the porch with Todd. No problem with kicking it with anybody on the porch. But when it comes to, you know, this Eddie stuff, this trial is very important because I'm curious to see how what a shit show it was, you know? I'm curious to see.
I also I'm in the process of trying to get another guest on the show.
And if we got to get that's awesome. And if we got to get the transcript, then we got to bring, you know, we got to get somebody up here to read it because we're going to have to get someone who actually likes doing stuff like that will sit there and read everything, you know, and I'll pay you to do it, you know. I mean, at that point, because that's going to be a lot of reading.
I'll read it.
Man, no, please no.
God
and I'm not saying that you can't read. We need reading. Nah, I'm not saying you suck at reading. Nah, I'm just saying you suck at reading.
I'm just messing with you.
I'm saying I'd rather have like a cool, calm voice reading it where we could get brought into it. You know what I mean? Like something like relaxing, you know, something different, you know. That's what the trial will bring, you know. The trial will bring a different vibe to the show. Like we'll be locked in watching the trial, or if we have somebody like a woman's voice, you know, saying it will bring a different element to the show, you know. That's a lot of reading, bro. That's a lot of reading. That's 45 hours of reading. But
yeah, that's a lot. Maybe I don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's a lot of reading, bro. I mean, because you want to sit back and think about it. You know what I mean? Reading it, it's reading it and then reacting at the same time. You just want someone to read it and tell them to stop, and then be like, all right, let's react. You know what I mean? And someone to do that, I think it's got to be someone who's not totally into this, someone that's willing to take the job, get paid for the job, and that's the next step. That's the next step.
Yep.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah.
What's up, Kevin?
Well, I got to handle a couple of things, so I'm gonna jump off.
Yeah, we about to wind this down.
All right, ahead, so I'll see you guys after we'll talk in the back.
All right, my brother. I'll talk to you. Peace. Jay Brill, ladies and gentlemen.
Goddamn, Jay Brill on the cash app.
J.F.K, keep asking questions. It's your wheelhouse, putting the cards on the table, turbulence on every flight. Thank you, Acknowledge. Oh, that's my man, Acknowledge, man. I haven't seen you for a while. What up, Acknowledge? I appreciate you, brother. Can the trial channel folks help? The power of someone like Todd, his mindset, those are the skills he used daily. If something doesn't sound right, he would know. Bam, we got Our girl Josie Lou with the turbulence.
Your shadow.
I walked outside.
Oh shit. We in the hood? Or the hood is in here?
Absolutely. Sticky fingers, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome to the stream. Let's go. Let's make the go. Guess we are the hood boogers.
All the hood boogers. Scratch that. Maybe it's because we too good looking.
Josie, thank you so much, Josie. I appreciate you. You know that girl. Josie is here tonight. She's not on a vacation. She's always here though with us. My Heart's Truth, $9.99. Fantastic work. Becky G says, great job breaking that down for Todd. It was interesting to hear his thoughts. Thank you, Becky. Tell Todd about the Adi and the knife and Carol. That's for another time.
Yeah.
That's for another time. There was some things I left out. We talked about 20 minutes behind stage too. It's a lot, man. It's a lot. And sometimes it's like, you know, I hope I'm doing it right too. Like as I'm saying it, I'm trying not to think about it. I'm just letting the repetition do it. You know, just do it. But you know,
I mean, we're invested, man. I mean, like you
Yeah.
said, I mean, we've done some deep diving with this, you know, and you know, and on with our layers, having Todd up here tonight was, you know, we peeled back that layer and had Todd up here.
What's up, Bags?
God damn.
What you doing, girl?
She's a chemist.
Yeah, the best channel in chat and mods for sure. DNA under Janice fingernails didn't match Eddie, but they didn't test anyone else for sure. I'll be. And our girl Rose D, who probably gifted about 3,000 memberships, she is here. Thanks, Rose D. I appreciate you. Go ahead and follow Rose D. Give some memberships. Everybody's better in all green. Aunt B says, does Todd know if it was normal practice in the 80s to administer truth serum to alleged suspects? If not, this is his thoughts. Consider we saw clips and test. Eddie denies doing that. Thank you. I didn't get to ask him that question, but I think he answered that he believes that truth serum with drugs administered, that's an issue.
Yeah. Yeah, especially being a juvenile, and I think he brought that up to make that point. You know, I mean, not the doctors are saying that hey, this can be used, but you got that other portion of people that are going to say, hey, listen, you're doing this to a juvenile, and the biggest thing I noticed Todd, really touching upon too is the development. The development of the youth and where they are at 14 years old with acting and where their emotions would be at that age, the embarrassment. He mentioned something about the embarrassment, and I tend to think of it, I mean, when you come from a family with a little bit of history, say within the city, it's that name, that O'Brien, you know what I'm saying? That was on a badge at one point, and sometimes we, as kids or growing up, we don't want to tarnish that name, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's true though. It's like, what yeah, exactly. Like if he's like, if he did have them thoughts about Janet and he's confused, like I did like Janet, but he didn't do it, putting accountability on himself. It's like, yeah, you could like Janet. That's okay. You could be attracted to an older woman, but that doesn't mean he did that, And so, ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, people who's watched, we're talking Eddie O'Brien. We do deep dives on Eddie O'Brien. We do deep dives on everything. We're just deep dudes. Sometimes we're on the porch. And I appreciate everybody for being here. And, when it comes down to it, ladies and gentlemen, we don't know what happened that night. We don't know what happened that night. And if the family wants to speak, because everybody we show this case to, their reaction is that. So I'm open to hear. I'm hoping to hear, from the family, from Ryan, because Ryan, what if you're wrong? And what if we're wrong, Ryan? And that's the thing. I just want to know what's right. So Ryan, if you could come up here, Carrie Ann, anybody who was there, let me know what I'm missing. Is there something I'm missing about this kid, Eddie? Is Eddie this slick? Did Eddie really pull this off in 10 minutes? Really hit the clothes, got rid of the knife? Who helped him with it? Remember what Adi said, right? Adi said that ask his dad what happened to the clothes. All these different things. Like, let us know. Let us know your POV. What do you think happened? And then maybe we can help you with some things you might be confused about. Let's help each other. I want to let you know there's a lot of people here who think Eddie's not guilty, right? For sure. But there is a lot of people that don't know what happened. So we need to start talking to some people that were there in 1995. It's not going to hurt. Eddie's not going nowhere. He's convicted. He's got a battle up ahead of him. But Adi, come up here and explain yourself. Adi, and you're the big spokesperson of why he's so guilty. Come up here and explain why he's so guilty instead of making it look like he's not guilty, because you're the one who's making him look like he's not guilty with all the lies, right, Kev?
Yeah. I mean, he's just fed us a bunch of bullshit. Nothing lines up, nothing adds up. I mean, we could spend another night on all the inconsistencies of Adi. We've done it before. And usually when we start talking about the inconsistencies of Adi and his story, he adds another part. Believe it? He adds another part. So Adi, if you're out there, and you're sitting there, think about it. Make a phone call. If you feel comfortable, if you feel comfortable having one of your family members come up with you, invite them. Maybe that might work for you. Maybe you and Paul could talk up here, or you and Ryan, or maybe you and Carol.
That's what I'm saying.
You could help. Maybe you could help get Carol out of this too.
I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, I know no one wants to think that, but if you say Adi did it, that means Carol knows that he's full of shit, and that sucks. I would hate to think that he put Carol in this, and this is a dirty secret. Or maybe we're just wrong. Maybe Eddie just did it, and I know nobody wants to hear that. Maybe Eddie just did it, and that's always a possibility too. But like I said, we're here to break down the facts. I'm not against Eddie. I'm all about the truth. I'm breaking it down. I'm showing you everything. I'm laying it all out. I would like to get the trial so we can break that down. All I got to say is this: respect the process. I go by the name of J.F.K.
And I go by Kevy Kev.
And we appreciate your time. Let's go.
Your shadow.
Everything comes from the stoop.
Summer, yeah. Summer of 1995, hot night in July.
Why did Janet have to die? This is the story of Eddie, Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The system is petty. Juvenile law and politics so deadly. 15 years old, known as Big Lovable Teddy. Yeah, Janet Downing, 42 years old. What's the motive? Killed in her home, young mother devoted. Eddie went in the house, the door was open. She was on the kitchen floor laying there frozen. Eddie claims this was not what he planned to see. A man with the mask grabbed him. Be quiet. I will kill your whole family. Eddie left the house, ran up the street, around the corner, washed up in the bathroom at Burger King. Janet was stabbed multiple times. Rest in peace. It was a gruesome murder scene. I agree. Eddie went to his work, said he got jumped, but never said a thing. What? About Janet lying there lifeless. His friend's mother from across the street. He was in the house. But Janet had a brother-in-law she kicked out for selling drugs. Said if anything ever happened to her, it's him you bring up. The night of the murder, he showed up, was acting suspicious in the front yard. Gina in Virginia says he was looking for his keys. It was humid and muggy, but he was showered and neat. He was a cab driver looking for his key. Looking for a key to one of the cabs in the fleet. Yes. How did he know something happened on that street? Eddie says he is innocent, and the cab driver did it. Who do you believe? Believe. DNA under Jaded's fingernail, unidentified. Who do you believe? Come on. This is the story of Eddie, 15 years old, life in prison. This the story of Janet, life taken and stolen for no reason. It was the summer. July of 1995, do you remember? 30 years ago, why she have to die? 15 years old, locked in a cage, a murder that he always denied. La, 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 la. Woo! Let's go. Summer of 95. La, la, la. Life goes by. Welcome to the stream. Long gamers, peace and love. La, 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 la. Let's take them back.
This is a JFK production.
Carol 945. Artie said he arrived. Yeah. How was that possible? Was Artie already inside? You got to make up your mind. Your sister died. If he is involved, then you lied. Taxi driver, weed dealer, city slicker. You called his work and told him something happened. This is not a pretty picture. The question is, why do you back him? Look in the mirror. Carol. Come on. This is a letter from your sister. She says she misses you. Carol and Artie sitting in a C-A-B-B. First comes love, then the diamond ring. Locked out the cab, Artie couldn't find his key. Summer of 95. It was the summer of 95. It was a July night. It was just another night to some. Come on, yep. But a life changer for us. If Artie was involved in all the dirt, Carol, you are covered in.
This is a JFK production. A JFK production.
JFK in the mix. Come on. Right now. JFK in the mix. Come on. Right now.
Carol. Come on. This is a letter from your sister. She says she misses you. Carol and Artie Artie sitting in a CAB. First comes love, then the diamond ring. Locked out the cab, Artie couldn't find his key. Summer of 95. It was the summer of 95. It was a July night. It was just another night to some. Come on, yeah, but a life changer for us. If Artie was involved in all the dirt, Carol, you are covered in mud.
J.F.K. in the mix.
Come on,
right
now. Got to make up your mind. Your sister died. If he is involved, then you lied. Taxi driver, weed dealer, city slicker. You called his work and told him something happened. This is not a pretty picture. The question is, why do you back him? Look in the mirror. 945, he said he arrived the latest 10. Eddie got life in jail, who was playing pretend? How did he know when your sister wasn't found? And you are the one who told him. That's real, come on. Who told you? No statement from the dispatch. DNA don't match. Artie lost his key to the cab, blood trails in the back of it. Said he went in the house for a kitty litter box. Does it make you mad? It's just sad. If he lied all this time, then you did too, Carol. Come on. This is a letter from your sister. She says she misses you. Carol and Artie sitting in a CAB. First comes love, then a diamond ring. Locked out the cab. Artie couldn't find his key. Summer of 95. It was the summer of 95. It was a July night. It was just another night to some. Come on, yeah, but the life changer for us. If Artie was involved in the dirt, Carol is covered in mud. Let's go! Let's go!
J.F.K. in the mix. Right now. J.F.K. in the mix. Right now.
It was the summer of 95. If Artie was involved in all the dirt, then Carol, you were covered in mud. This is a JFK production. Let's go. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I appreciate your time. Peace and love. We'll see you.
it is time.